Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Music and Life. A very special episode. This is out of the norm. This is something that has actually been in the making for a few months now. The idea came to me as I was watching a certain Instagram break down law, break down music law, and things that affect us as independent artists and music producers in such a unique way that had me like, why couldn't the person that first told me about it tell me like this? That person happened to be someone who goes by the name of the Latte Lawyer. Now, that is the name that she has given herself. But this is Samara, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome Samara with open arms. And where are my claps? Where are the claps at? Okay, my claps didn't work real quick, but it's cool. Samara. Darnell been in here messing with my stuff.
I was waiting for a boo. Boo.
No,
Okay.
we can't. You know, that's his way of showing love. You know, I'm a lot different than that, but Samara, we greatly appreciate you being here as an entertainment attorney, as the Latte Lawyer. I want to get down to obviously the specifics of what it is, because there's a reason why you got that Esquire attached to your name. You put some work in, because that can't nobody just.
On dead.
You know what I mean?
Item, please.
Look.
Item, please.
So, without further ado, I do want to make sure that the people have an opportunity to understand what that means. So, first and foremost, how are you doing?
I am good. Thank you for asking. And, you know, not to be, I don't want to use the word ASS here, but I really do like your page. And so when you reached out, I was like a little concerned it was a scam initially. I was like, is this real Curtis King? So I had to check the number of S's.
Yeah.
Like, is it three S's or two?
So
thank you for having me on.
It's unfortunate that now you have to look at things like how many underscores are after the name. Does he have underscores? Someone just did that to me the other day, and I'm just like, I thought my early years in the industry was very scammy, but then I was like, social media was like, hold my beer.
I got this.
Every day somebody else pops up, but I think that's also why your voice is so important, because one, you approach your content with an energy that is very trusting for a profession that I think a lot of us have hesitancy to trust in, right?
Yeah.
So just for clarity's sake,
Yes.
the Latte Lawyer, what is the actual specifics about the type of law that you practice and all those good things?
Okay, great. So my real name is Samara J, right? And I go by the Latte Lawyer on Instagram. I no longer am in Twitter. I left a while back, but I practice entertainment law, but with entertainment law, there's business law and there's IP. That's important to know, because if you are an artist and you're not just making music in your room and you're putting it out on the internet anywhere, you are a business. You know, whether you want to be or not, you are a business because you're catering to an audience.
Right.
So I practice business law because if you're going to be an independent artist, which most of my clients are, especially the producers, you have to have your business created. So that's why I have the business part. And then I have the IP part, because most of your business is intellectual property, right? Mm-hmm. It's going to be your trademarks, and it's going to be your copywritten material, which is your music, specifically your beats. So
right.
So entertainment law really covers IP and business, but it's a specific part of IP and business.
Right. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that have specific questions that you've been bombarding me with as if I've passed the bar, this is your time to ask those, because as we're having the conversation, there's a few topics that we want to touch on and talk about, but I want to leave that opportunity open for you to ask any questions that you have. Pop them here on the screen and we'll do just that. But let's start with the very, very bare basis, because you already threw out a few terms, and I know there's some folks who are like, man, just make a beat already. You need to relax. First of all, whoever said that, you need to relax. We're here talking about the important things, the foundation, and the reason why some people lose the very creativity or the business that supports their creativity is because of ignorance or because of glossing over things. But I thought one thing that was interesting, and I was watching your interview with Clint Music, was the difference between attorneys and lawyers, just for the specifics, because I know that there's some folks who have confusion about just the terminology in general.
Okay, that one's an easy question. So I'm
Hmm.
glad that you asked that one. So a lawyer is someone who went to law school and they graduated law school, so they have their JD. An attorney is somebody who has graduated from law school, but also takes their state's bar exam. So that way, and passes. You have to pass
Hmm.
it. You can't just take it and fail it, but you have to pass
Oh, that's
it.
all I gotta
And
do.
once you,
Just go take it. Okay, cool. For sure. No.
you gotta pass it too. You gotta pass it too. And then once you pass it, then you can represent other people, and
Okay.
that's what an attorney. So an attorney can represent someone. A lawyer just has gone to law school, but they can't represent you. Even though there are content creator lawyers who know a lot and they provide a lot of information, but they
Right.
can't represent you. That's the difference.
Mm,
And even though I'm the latte lawyer, technically I'm both. I'm a lawyer because I graduated from law school, but I'm
hello.
also an attorney. You can look me up, Florida Bar Member Search. That's how you look up every attorney. Look up the state and then put Bar Member Search, and you should be able to find if that attorney is a real attorney. That's important to mention. No one ever asked me that,
See, and I'm
so
glad you
look them
mentioned
up.
that. So just in case that was being glossed over, those of you, especially when you're being presented contracts, which is something it still blows my mind how many people believe in these fairy tale stories where somebody says, "Man, I've been listening to your music on SoundCloud." Make it even worse. I'm listening to your music on MySpace, and I just feel like you just got the potential to take over the world. And I'm emailing you because I have a deal. I work with Def Jam. You can't tell by my Gmail email, and people still, they yet and still are willing to give everything that they have worked on so that they can, see this to be true. And I think there's some telltale things that, like you said, there's some very basic things that you can do because you have internet access. Anybody watching this has internet access, where you're able to look that up. So you were saying specifically they can go any state, any
Any
state.
state.
Uh-huh.
Every state's different, right? Because each state has their own jurisdiction and laws. But every state, just if you just put in your state and then you
Mm-hmm.
put bar member search, because I'm part of the Florida bar. That's I guess the attorney club is the best way to describe it. That's
Right.
we're all together. So if you look me up at Florida bar member search and you look up Samara SOMARA
Mm-hmm.
Jacques JACQUES,
Got it.
then you can find me because it has my bar member number, it has my address for my firm, it has contact information, and most importantly, on the bottom, it has disciplinary history. So if
Mm.
an attorney has been doing, I can't curse here, but someone
Why can't you?
earlier.
Why can't you?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, mom. One of the people that was looking up, he's like, if a lawyer does some bug shit, you see that on the disciplinary action. Like
Ooh,
it'll tell you what they've done
got it.
and like what the problem was. So if they stole money from a client, if they didn't, certain things
Yeah.
are happening. If they have a drug problem and they had to go into rehab for it, like those are all like it's there.
That's
It's
information I need to
recorded.
know. Yeah, that's
Yeah. You kind of want to know that. It's important, especially if they're taking your money. So
yeah.
it's good to know. And then if you already passed that kind of due diligence test, then
Mm-hmm.
you can be like, okay, this person, and you see what bar section they're in. Like I'm part of the entertainment bar section, like a
Mm-hmm.
mini section of lawyers. So you want to see if they're in those like sections that you're trying to like represent them for. So if you're looking for a tax attorney, it's not necessarily they have to be part of the tax section,
Mm-hmm.
but if they are, that's a good indicator that they know that area, they are practicing in that area, they're getting more information and education in that area. So it's just a good idea to like look up the extra information that the bar provides about the attorney.
Very important. So you work with obviously a lot of artists, a lot of producers, as you said earlier. At what point are they approaching you? What are they in need of by the time that they're contacting you? Because I remember when I first got started with my music career, one thing I kept hearing, and even in the book when I was reading, all you need to know about the music business, all that,
Donald Passman,
you know what I mean?
OG.
That's
Mm-hmm.
the book that you're presented with in the beginning, and everything kept pointing back to you need an entertainment lawyer, and there was a few different reasons they laid that out at that time, but
Mm-hmm.
as it is today, what are most of your clients coming to you? What stage are they at when they're coming to you about business?
It depends on the client. Most of my producer clients, and it's funny that you mentioned the whole I found your beat on MySpace, because funny enough, a lot of the times when producers are approached by Universe, and this is why it makes it even harder to like figure out a scam.
Mm-hmm.
They found them on YouTube, they found them on Instagram,
Mm,
and then the A&R will reach out and say, "Hey, I heard your music on whatever platform. And so I can give you actually at the end what like the endings for the proper places like Universal Music, Sony. I have it in
Okay.
um
Oh,
my
cool.
Gmail, so I'll send that.
Appreciate
So you
that.
can always verify that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's when they reach out. So I had two 19-year-olds actually reach out, like really young producers,
Hmm.
and it was both that same way. They got reached out through Instagram, actually both of them, and then they needed to find an attorney like that day. So they found me
Mm.
on Instagram, and that's how I ended up working with them. And then a lot of other people are referrals. I met one at a party and said he had nice hair, and he ended up winning a Grammy later on. So it just really
Oh,
depends on how
wow.
they reach out to them. Really
Yeah.
weird industry.
Yeah. Well, and that's my question too. I never forget I was watching a Shark Tank episode. You ever watch Shark Tank?
Oh, I love Shark Tank.
Love it
Except
too.
Mr. Wonderful isn't so wonderful. He's saying some crazy stuff. But other
He
than that,
does. He does. That's why he'll never get no deals. Nobody ever want to go with him. They're like, between you and Mark Cuban, I think I'm gonna go to Mark Cuban. Like, it's always that situation. But one thing I
he
never
looks a
forget,
little evil too, actually,
he
to
does
be
got.
honest.
But you know what?
Yeah, a little bit.
Here's my theory about him, and I never met him. Here's my theory about him, and I'm pretty sure there's some people who work with him who are like, I can tell you the truth. But from an outside point of view, it's always the meanest on the shows that's the nicest in person. And then the opposite, the nicest on the shows be the one that's the meanest in
I
person.
could see that. I could see that logic. That makes sense.
But
Okay.
I feel like he's a shark. He has to be a shark. He's in character. But all that
Right.
aside, I was watching an episode, Samara, one time where it broke my heart. I think I was eating a bowl of cereal watching, and I wanted to drop the bowl of cereal down. They were sitting there talking to somebody who was part of a band, and they were looking for an investment into their music career. And in unison, every one of these millionaires started laughing. And they laughed because they said, music industry, I would never invest my money into anything music related unless I wanted something that was quote unquote that Mark Cuban said, something that was interesting to have in my portfolio, like for the aesthetics
Mm.
of it. And so I'm
Yeah.
always wondering with someone who goes through all the work that is required to pass the bar and to just all the research and everything that you have to do, all that work that you did, what brings you to practicing this law for the music industry? Like, what? There's got to be some kind of connection or some kind of story, because it's times I look up and I'm like, besides the point that I make beats, I'm like, I don't. What am I involved in this for?
You're gonna laugh at me because I actually did a lot of different practices, areas of law before I got into music. But
Okay.
originally in college, I thought I wanted to be an A&R, even though I am deathly shy and I'm not really great with people. I was like,
Mm,
A&R seems like that's something I could do because I
yeah.
love music.
Yeah.
So when I got into this, area of law, I practiced personal injury, I practiced, insurance law, I practiced commercial litigation, and so I started my own firm.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, come. Whoever needs me, I'll do whatever they can. We call that door law when you're first starting out. Like whatever walks through the door, you'll figure it out. So I got a couple of entertainers, a couple rappers actually,
Mm-hmm.
that were vegan. Were the first people that came to my door. And so I was like, okay, I can do this. And it just kind of kept building from there. And what I realized is most of the money that I make,
Mm-hmm.
I would say like 50% at first came from entertainment law. Probably now it's like 30% because I do more business stuff for like
Mm-hmm.
other people.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized that this area of the law is an area of the law where I can teach people sort of how to do it themselves. And that's where the latte lawyer came up with. Like, I was like, okay, if I meet you in a coffee shop and I explain for you how to do it, then, you at least are comfortable enough to handle it yourself.
Yeah.
And most importantly, because I'm a Black person,
Yes. Yeah.
it was important for me because a lot of the entertainers that I have are people of color, mostly Black people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting all these deals and like sign, and they don't know what they're signing. And then
Mm-hmm.
later on, they're just like, okay, so if I can teach you how to sort of protect yourself in this realm, that's kind of why I did it. I know it sounds weird to be like, oh, it's kind of like it was a crusade because I know that entertainment wasn't going to make me that much money, but I thought it was
Right.
important for me. I have this platform. There aren't a lot of Black lawyers. I love music. I
Mm-hmm.
want people to protect their music. And so that's why I started the firm. And that's kind of why I went to this trajectory to be like, let me explain how music law works, entertainment law generally, because it's what comes from your head can make you money. And there's not a lot of spaces like that where your imagination can make you income. And so that's kind of why I'm into this area.
And when they say entertainment law, this is a general question. Like, how
Mm-hmm.
wide does that Does that net cast like how
The
like
net,
yeah.
it pretty wide. So recently I'm still working on a movie production.
Hmm.
They got their SAG signatory status. So if you don't know what SAG is, that's the Screen Actors Guild. And so I've worked from music and licensing to a platform called the Chitlin Circuit, which is like a online music platform that showcases Black artists,
Hmm.
to movies, to
Okay.
books. I did somebody who was a theater. She was in Hamilton, not
Okay.
in New York,
Word.
but just like traveling Hamilton. Her name is Nyla Rose. And so she wanted somebody to help her with an agent deal that she had. And so
Hmm.
I worked on that. So I'm pretty broad when it comes to entertainment.
Okay.
And it's been great too, because you get to work in all these different sectors of the entertainment space.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll reiterate it that it's important that we see folks that look like us when we're trying to maneuver in a business that a lot of times doesn't look like us, especially those who pursue the traditional music industry. Where are you based for those that don't know?
Oh, Miami, Florida, which is why I have a
Super
Super
Dade, there
Dade
it
shirt
is.
on because it's Dade County. Yes.
So,
This is also my client's like trademarks too. So my
okay.
client, he has Super Dade brand and this is his brand. So I do my best to like wear my client's clothing whenever I'm on like a podcast or an interview or anything.
And salute to you for that, because we definitely want to get into that end of things, because that's one of the most common questions is things like how do I copyright my music? What is the difference between
Yeah.
copyright and we'll get into all that, but I just want to touch on this last thing is that was what initially made me more interested in some of these things that I had let go as an artist. As an artist, just from an artist perspective, we come into the business of it, regardless if you're independent or regardless if you're going into the other industry. Um, we already have so much on our plate creatively when we love our craft. There's already so much on there, and there's so much nuance to it. There was like, okay, I just barely got to a place where my music is something, right? And
Yeah.
I think we get into other fields, and it's just so damn overwhelming. It was overwhelming for me to where I knew people who were practicing entertainment law, but even knowing them wasn't enough because they were busy, and then I was still trying to. I was a my young mind was trying to make sense out of everything going on around me. But I think that's why voices like yours is so needed, and it's so dope for someone like you to be in the corner of creatives, because I just feel like it's been an uptick with social media. There's so much predatory energy out there when
Yeah.
folks know the law a whole lot more than you. How has that been in terms of, I mean, I feel like when people meet you for the first time, they already feel like I can trust her, but how has that been in terms of working with artists and producers? Because I know from putting out courses, they think everything's a damn scam until they figure out like, oh, he's one of the good guys.
Right. Okay, so it's funny because I definitely try to be as like casual as possible, but I am still a lawyer. So I think that just saying the word lawyer to an artist, they're already like, no. Like it's really hard to get people to feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the language that you use when you're talking about like there's a word called exploitation legally. And that means, right, that you're going to be able to use your art to make music or
Mm-hmm.
to make money or to license it. But when you use the word exploitation to like your artist, right? They're just like, why are you trying to exploit me? Like, why are you trying to
Yeah,
like take advantage of me?
it's a
So it
trigger
is a
word.
lot
Yeah.
of, right, exactly. So I feel like it's a lot of education, sort of, at the very beginning. So for do I think people trust me more because of Instagram. I think people trust me more because I'm just giving information.
Mm-hmm.
I even did like a trademark walkthrough where I was like, I can teach you how to do your own trademark. It ended up being like 3 hours. It was a lot. And I got more people asking me to do it
Yeah.
for them after the show.
Yeah.
Right. But I think just like if you talk to somebody who's a lawyer, not
Mm-hmm.
all lawyers are the same. And if you just get to have conversations with them, it becomes easier because I tell people, and I use this all the time, because I still have records.
Mm-hmm.
There's an A side and there's a B side to a record to make like a full album, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need that A side, you need the artistic side, but you also need the B side. So we can work together to create something. And I think that's important just to sit down with an artist and like be patient. I do my best. I'm not the most patient person in the world, but
Right.
I do my best to be like, hey, like, what's your questions? There's no stupid question. Like, I want you to understand as much as you can. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that just having those conversations, and that goes back to being a latte lawyer, like having the conversations one on one. I did it at coffee shops and not at the office because people felt more comfortable in a coffee shop.
Mm-hmm.
That makes it easier for you to like trust me because you trust the person. and vice versa. Like we have to work together. I don't work with every artist that comes to me, right? We have to be able to, I guess, vibe for us to work, because
Yeah.
it's going to be a lot of uphill battles when you're trying to get your money. You're dealing with the label.
Yeah.
It's a lot of back and forth.
And
So I would say the Instagram is what helped me, like just being able to talk to them on a platform that's not so scary and that's digestive.
right. And I imagine it's, you said that you find the ideal, or you see who's a perfect match, or a good match versus a bad match. And I imagine that requires a level of accountability. What I'm wondering is, how much do you look for a artist or a producer to shoulder? Like, how much do you look to them to be willing to take care of their business? Because I think a lot of artists, some know so much that they end up overlooking the basics. Some only know the basics and are afraid to go any further than that. So how much should an artist, especially independent, because the majority of folks in here are independent artists and producers,
Right.
How much is too much before they need to tap in and talk to someone who does this for a living?
That's a good question, and I'm trying to figure out how to like answer that because it's such a big question.
Yeah.
How do I
Like, are there some examples of somebody who's come in and you're like, I see the situation as it is, but something about your character leads me to feel like this is going to be a bigger headache? Because I work with artists, I work with producers. I know these creatives. People say, Curtis, man, you make a great manager. Just like Erykah Badu once saying, I guess I'll see you next lifetime, because it's not happening in this one. It's not happening in this one. They're emotional. I can be that too. They're erratic. They're 2 o'clock in the morning. I need this. Hey, this thing just happened. Can you hit me back? Did you get my text? So I wonder if there's a certain type of personality type. And then also too, some just don't look up the information, even the bare basics, when you give them all this game. I wonder if there's folks who are like more ideal than others and folks who are less ideal.
Okay, I can. That's actually okay. That's an easier question to answer. So if you're curious about the business, those are people that I do well with. Like the people who are just like, I want you to do everything as a lawyer. It doesn't work that way. It's a partnership as well. I don't want to use the word partnership because legally that's a term, but it's a relationship that we have to work on together, because I'm going to be asking you questions and then I'm going to have to get information from you in order to be able to do the things that I need to do on my side. So I need people who are curious about the business. They're curious about royalties. They're also not afraid to ask questions. Like to me, there's no stupid question. If you've never seen it before, like let's say you've never seen the word apple, it's not stupid to be like, how do you sound this out?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it's the same way. So I just want people who are curious about the business and understand that it's not something that maybe you like to do, but it's part of what you need to do to be able to get to the next level where you're going.
Right.
I'm a lawyer. I would prefer not to have to deal with my accounting or marketing or any of that other stuff. Because like an artist, right? Like you're a producer, all you want to do is make beats. I'm a lawyer, all I want to do is just like make my little contracts, do my trademarks, and call it a day. But there's going to be other things, especially if you're independent, that you're going to have to handle because you are handling your entire business until you get a team. And I have to stay constantly curious about that. So I like people that are constantly curious. Those are the best people that I've worked with.
I mean, that's definitely someone that I am, because the more I start to understand that so much of my career as an artist and producer, I've been playing business and not necessarily conducting business. I've done a lot of different things, just being very transparent. I've done a lot of different things that from the outside, yes, they generate income. Yes, these things are great. They're great, how can I put it, side effects of playing business, but there's so many foundational things that I think a lot of us overlook. What I have a question for you about is viewing artists and producers as businesses. What are some things that out the gate should be taken care of to really establish themselves as a true business?
Oh, that's a great question. So a lot of people, when they start producing music, they produce it under their own name. That's called a sole proprietorship. I would suggest starting an LLC as soon as you can. There's a lot of tax benefits to that, but there's also liability benefits to that. So let's say you do get sued for using that sample.
Yeah.
And there's no inducement, hopefully, which we'll talk about later, on your contract. Then they can only sue for what's inside the business. So if your business has $0, then you can always file for bankruptcy, start again with a new business.
Okay.
So it is a lot of, depending on your state, it can be a lot of money or a little bit of money. California is the most expensive place I know that to do a business. I believe it's like 100 something plus like $600.
Yes.
For your, yeah, you know.
We got two businesses in this household, so yeah, it's
yeah. So you have to, the Department of Taxes doesn't play any jokes about that. Like I think every 2 years you have to pay that $600 fee. So I would say setting up the LLC is important, number one. And then number two, before you even release your music, because it takes like no time, set up your BMI as a writer and a publisher and sign up for Sound Exchange. Make sure that you have basically your bank accounts set up, like your royalty bank account set up. So that way, as soon as you start releasing music, you start collecting on that music. A lot of people will release music.
Yeah.
The royalties are like being generated, but there's no place for the royalties to go. And so they lose out on that money.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because there was a post that I saw by LaRussell, and he talked about the 4 places. You familiar with LaRussell?
Absolutely. Everybody who, if you know him, like everyone who's
on Instagram, yeah, for sure.
Independent people, yeah, no,
right.
Yeah. He's doing something at South by Southwest actually.
Okay, yeah,
with United Masters.
Love his movement. I love everything that he's standing for. I love the fact that he's giving a new energy around independence, and a lot of artists are following suit, and so. He does it in such a different way, and I feel like that's another purpose of my YouTube channel now, is really showing people you don't necessarily have to be a household name to find success in what you are doing, but you got to take care of your business. And you brought up royalties, and he was saying that there's 4 ways to collect royalties as an artist, and I think that, or as an artist and producer, because we both put stuff on distribution, or we distribute music, and I think most people are probably only getting it from the distributor, like DistroKid, right? He named DistroKid, he named ASCAP and BMI, like you mentioned, Sound Exchange, and then Song Trust. The question I have, and I'm sure many folks have, is this money that you have, like the other ones outside of DistroKid, they put it right there in your account. You know what you're getting. You send it off to your bank. With ASCAP and BMI, it's a little bit different how they distribute that money. So I guess my question to you is, what types of things should they be looking for, and how can they actually get their money from those royalties?
Okay, so there's a minimum amount from ASCAP and BMI. I do not know off the top of my head. I believe it's like $100 for BMI and ASCAP.
Okay.
But I know that they pay you in royalty statements, either quarterly, usually quarterly. So every 3 months that they'll pay you. So I guess your question is what to look out for to see if they're paying you? Yeah,
well, so the payments come through ASCAP in the way that they distribute those. Sound Exchange, is it a similar situation? I'm just now signing up for all. That's what I'm telling you.
So
I'm just now signing up for Sound Exchange and Song Trust.
Sound Exchange has Sound Exchange Direct.
Okay.
So what they do is and also ASCAP and BMI, you have your own interface, like your own portal. In that portal, it'll tell you how much money you're making. And then they'll tell you, like, they'll have the royalty statements available, like, in your account.
Yeah.
Just check your account. I would say check it. If you're not a person that checks every month or every day, which every day is going to cause frustration. Don't look every day, because it's going to take $0 and you're like, what the hell's going on? I would say every 3 months, make a date to look at your royalty statement.
Okay.
And see, like, what's going on there, what's happening, where's my music being played, and see how much money is being, distributed on those platforms. Now, you make more money if you license your music. Like, let's say you license it and you get into sync, you'll end up getting more money from that on the back end. So look for that too. And notice if there's any mistakes. Like if you know that you got your music licensed, but it's not showing up on your ASCAP royalty statements, call ASCAP, call BMI, and make sure that they know that, because they're not always going to be the best with making sure that you get paid what you're supposed to get paid, because they got a million artists and they don't really care about you individually. I know that sounds terrible to say, but it's true.
You gotta say.
Sound Exchange. Sound Exchange is the same way. They have Sound Exchange Direct.
Okay.
You do the same thing. You go to your account and you have to claim your songs though. So they have something called an ISRC search, and you have to go ahead and basically add it to like a shopping cart. I know it sounds weird, but you add it to a shopping cart and then you claim the songs that are yours. And then once you claim the songs, then they'll start collecting those royalties for you from Sound Exchange. And then LaRussell, and I love him, but I'm just saying Song Trust isn't an additional like additional aggregator that can get your music.
Mm-hmm.
Songtrust is a publishing admin. So what they do is they supercharge the collection from ASCAP or BMI. So instead of you having to go ahead and make sure that they're paying you, you give Songtrust 15% to make sure that all the music that you have released is actually getting collected. Okay. And they take on that responsibility for you.
So like a watchdog to ensure that these things are being taken care of.
Yeah. Okay. Like if you had, I watch a lot of like old gangster films sometimes. Like, so like that person who's like the enforcer on the street, like, where's my money? Like, yeah, the guy who's getting protection money. That's what I would say, like, Songtrust.
Yeah. You mean shifty-eyed Louie?
I would say like Big Sal, like Tiny, like who those people.
It's
like,
always the opposite of what they are.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, and like I said,
that's what Songtrust does.
Okay, yeah, sorry, but I don't say that. And I'm just now, like, for the longest, I think I transitioned from making music as an artist to just, I'm a producer, then I became full-blown content creator. So then I just kind of ran through the same steps that I had already been doing. But with Sound Exchange, what I have questions about in particular, and ladies and gentlemen, don't y'all get quiet now. Because I promise you, if you come to me tomorrow with legal questions and we literally have the latte lawyer here in the room right now and you didn't say anything, I'm blocking everybody. I'm blocking everybody. But here's my, don't do that. Here's my question though. Where is Sound Exchange pulling this income from?
I'm glad you asked. So
I'm glad I did, because I was like, is that a dumb question? I was like, I have to ask this. I'm like, you always hear them.
No.
Yeah,
it's not a dumb question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, because even with like ASCAP, like I remember when there was a bar that I used to perform at all the time, and the promoter, shout out to my guy Noah James, he would tell me like, hey, this person is from one of them places. Like, he's literally coming into the bar, writing down what songs are getting played, and he's reporting to somebody about these numbers. He was like, he's the same person that also tells the bar that you have to pay a certain license in order to play music on a regular basis. And I'm like, okay, so that makes a little bit of sense. But I always wonder, like, how are people recording all this music that gets played in the elevator? In case your music gets played, and as a producer right now getting 15 streams, like, anybody playing my beats in no elevator, where's this money coming from? And how when you tell me to sign up, these things cost money to sign up to. But yeah, where's that money being pulled from?
Okay, so I'm glad you asked. That's really great. So technically, with ASCAP and BMI, get money from public performance of your song.
Okay.
So they have to go to, let's say, the gym, if this is a physical location, a bar, and they're supposed to have a license. It's a blanket license that they pay, and then they distribute that to all of their members.
Got it. So
that's how they do. But also, most of the time, you're tracking because they're tracking what we call an ISWC code. So it's like a little barcode on each song that you release. If you look at your DistroKid, you'll see there's a code called the ISRC code. And that's how Sound Exchange looks for your music, because they collect on non-interactive streams. But if it's played on the website, or if it's played on like Pandora and you can't choose where the song is coming from, that's where they're getting their money.
Okay.
The way that code helps them track it.
The way it was explained, this was at a panel, and this is what frustrates me so much about panels. And I get the invitations, and I don't want to go, especially if it's not my area of expertise. But some people will present information and not give enough context and make it seem as if Sound Exchange. They said, man, the advice they were given to a producer was that, man, if you got folks that's out there with your music and you claimed it, man, you got a whole lot of money out there you could be getting, and Sound Exchange is what you got to sign up for. And I feel like that tells only part of the story. And there's a lot of people, especially out my way in LA, and when you go to these and I only use that because it's the biggest city, but you go to some of these panels and these events, these music industry events, and folks are giving half truths. They're giving only a little bit of what's going on, and what you did already is just already enough of a service to so many people who are like, I get it on paper, I get it in theory, but what that actually looks like behind the scenes doesn't make any sense for a lot of people, I think.
If everyone's on the computer now, like I think the best way to do it is to actually like do it. Is like not just have me tell you about it. So if you go on Sound Exchange right now and then you look up their ISRC search, put your name in
Mhm.
and see how many songs like Sound Exchange has in their database. They're probably already collecting money for you on that. And then you can see like how many songs you're missing out on. So I
See,
think that's the best way. I always tell people like just look right
just go
now.
through.
Like you can go right now. Let's do it.
Well, I was gonna pull up some of these questions because I mean that I'm.
Oh, answer
Yeah.
the questions, but I'm gonna look you up right now.
You gonna look me up?
While
Okay.
you're looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because now I know your government name.
This is true. This is true. They like government name is Curtis King. No, it's not. SS Stack says good info. I have all of them with Sound Direct. It's a bit confusing and always got to make sure it's getting generated. I have contacted them and figured it out.
Yeah. The only good thing I would say, like Sound Exchange, the platforms are really old. Like Sound Exchange is a very old platform, so it's difficult to try to navigate.
Mm-hmm.
But Sound Exchange is one of the few, like what we call the CMOs, so a collective management organization, that's really helpful. Like every time I've called Sound Exchange, I've had somebody on the phone, I've got an email like immediately. I won't speak ill of some other ones like Aska. But I would say like Sound Exchange has been really, really good. So if you have a question, you can contact them. They have a phone number on their about page, and you'll usually get someone within like 5-10 minutes. They're very helpful.
Right. See, that's supremely helpful. Just looking through here, ladies and gentlemen, if y'all have questions,
no one's asking. Is it because I'm scary? That's fine.
No,
I look pretty scary.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and assume that there's a lot of questions that people are afraid of. Is that should I admit that I don't know the answer to that question out loud? I think some people are a little bit hesitant. It's a community of folks who are very prideful about their independence, but I'm putting this out here so that you can get the answers and actually get it taken care of. So, is it worth it in your eyes? What worth it, Blake? You're asking about what worth it? Is it worth to get Sound Exchange and all these things? Is it worth it?
Yeah, it's free. It's free. It's super free.
Hello.
It's the easiest thing to do, and it generates money pretty quickly. So yeah, I would say Sound Exchange is super worth it. 100%. Also, the MLC, which I don't think that I'm not sure if Russell talked about that, but the Mechanical Licensing Collective is like another area where there's music just hanging out and sitting there, and royalties generated that no one's collecting. And I don't think you know this. I know that with ASCAP and BMI, I mention all the time. If you don't collect those royalties, they go to the top line performers and to the labels. Ooh. If it's lost money. So that's your money. And I know that it's not cheap for you to go to a studio. Right. I know it's not cheap to mix and master your song. I know it's not cheap to create a video. And all that money that you spent goes down the drain and it goes to Drake. And he has like 17 bathrooms. You don't need to give him an 18. I tell that to people all the time. So just, if you're releasing music, it's worth it for you to collect it's like going to a job, not filling out your W-2 and being like, I don't want my paycheck. Right. You would never do that.
You would never do
that.
But
a lot of artists, they do that. They release music and then they're like, I don't want to sign up for ASCAP or BMI. It's the same paperwork that you would do if you're going to your job. But this is your music, so you should collect on it. I'm very big on that.
Yeah, we got questions piling in here now. I had one I wanted to get off right before while we're on that topic. Do these royalty outlets still apply for a producer who has had their music stolen?
Explain how.
In terms of, are they still able to get some royalties from a situation like so? I guess let me rewind a little bit back. So a producer sends a beat to an artist's email. Very common. It happens on Twitter. They say, "Hey, I'm looking for beats for a project." The producer sends the email, all happy and wet behind the ears, excited. They send 4 or 5 beats, and the artist picks a beat, does not notify them, creates a song to it, and then puts it out on streaming, puts it out on SoundCloud, all those different things, and no contact and no business has been arranged with that said producer.
Okay, that is an easy question to answer. I'm glad you asked. I get excited when I can answer a question because you just like, it's too hard.
I just got to ask it better. Yeah. That's all it is. I'm still getting used to this interviewing thing.
You asked the question perfectly, but that's the problem with like the law. The law is like, okay, there's always a gray area. Like, well, this or that. If somebody steals your music and you have like, okay, so you technically have a copyright as soon as it's fixed. So let's say that it's actually on like a recording device or it's on your computer and it's original. If you meet those two quotas, you have a copyright. Now, to be able to sue somebody, right, you've got to register it with the Copyright Office. But you've already met that step where you're like, okay, I've made the music, I'm sending you 5 beats. I would make sure to let them know these are copywritten beats, right? You find out that they used your beat. Now, let's say you give it like an internal number. Now you go to and you do what we call a DMCA takedown notice. If you look for a custodian who, like, let's say Spotify, look up Spotify DMCA custodian, and then you send them an email saying, hey, this person stole my music. This is my song. These are the emails. They need to take it down because they've infringed. 9 times out of 10, they'll take it down. Now, if they don't do that, then you'd have to go ahead and register your copyright and then sue. Well, send a cease and desist and then sue. But usually just going the DMCA route will take care of it. It'll have them take the song down.
You notice how none of that said to tell Twitter your issues? Y'all notice that? Y'all notice that? Y'all notice how this it didn't say go on a Twitter rant?
You're so petty.
I am, because you know what? Like, there's a part of me that's like, I empathize, but I'm also big brother to a lot of producers. I'm peer to a lot of producers, and it's like I share things with my community in hopes that they don't make the same mistakes that I would have once made. And I get it. Some of these artists are people that you look up to and you want to work with, but telling Twitter your issues and putting it all out there, I understand it's a very human thing to do, but damn it, that don't get none of the business taken care of. Right. And you see it all the time where none of those steps are taken. And it's like, you have access right now to the DMCA process that could take it down, instead of hoping that you go viral on YouTube or go viral through your tweets. Like, that's one step of the process that doesn't move the needle. And so I'm glad that you broke that down, because I think a lot of folks need to hear that. We got questions. Are you ready for some of these questions?
Yeah, I am, but because I always like have my computer next to me because I'm like, it's so computer based. So I looked up Spotify DMCA takedown notice, and it says how to make a legal claim relating to content on Spotify. And it's from support.spotify.com. So a quick Google search, they literally walk you through the process, and then there's the other thing where I call like, it depends on levels of threatening. I send a cease and desist saying like, hey, you stole my stuff, right? And you need to either take it down or pay me. And if you don't, we're going to use all available legal resources, which means I'm gonna sue you. You know what I mean? Yeah. So usually that is enough for people to like turn it around and be like, okay, I'm sorry, my bad. You know what I mean? Some people don't even know. Yeah. So they'll take it down, or they'll fix it, or they'll add you on and start paying you. So you have other options. I know this is gonna sound crazy coming from an attorney, but you have other options before you sue. As long as you know you're the owner of this work, so you can tell people, like, you can deal with that person however you'd like before you decide that you're going to go through a lawsuit. And usually a cease and desist or a DMCA takedown notice is enough to get that process handled. Well,
and I wasn't even talking about necessarily just artists hand-to-hand independent. I'm talking about these major label artists who find a beat on YouTube. Like, they find a beat on YouTube, they find a producer, they get a $30 license. Or even maybe they buy, I don't want to get to the kind of the terminology can get confusing. And ladies and gentlemen, I see your questions. We're going to get to all of these. But you'll get people who will swipe a beat offline. They'll get a license or whatever for it from the beat store, and they put it out. And maybe they even get the exclusive. I know the exclusive confuses things in terms of the terminology when it comes to law, but they buy an exclusive or an unlimited license, as producers will call it. And if they took those steps that you suggested, that's getting the attention of the big guys, the big boys, the folks in these these major labels who don't care about the stuff happening on social media. They more so want to know, what is this cease and desist coming from? Why are they contacting us? What happened to this? I feel like those are the things that actually can move the needle in terms of you getting what you're owed.
There was a song on Spotify. It was released for this producer. He reached out to me for a consultation. They released the music. They never paid him. They didn't tell him that it was released. He was like, I found out that the album dropped like yesterday. I said, contact the manager and tell them, hey, I need the paperwork. It didn't get obvious. It's like, you must have forgotten to send it.
Yeah.
Make sure to send it that way. And then he said, thank you. Because immediately, like maybe a day later, they gave him paperwork to go ahead and get forward and pay him his music. A lot of times people won't do these things because you just don't even ask,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't think that you're going to ask. But if you make a big enough deal, like, it can become a problem. You know what I'm saying? So I have the same issue with another artist that we're currently dealing with now,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to involve PR. It's going to involve notices, but you have options. Just reaching out, you have more power than you think, because technically they don't own the song,
Right.
and technically they're infringing until they have paperwork.
So in the scenario that someone, and I'm going to go to the question that's related to this, but in the scenario that someone reaches out and says, hey, we want to use this beat, producer who's just doing their own thing, and it's a major label artist, a representative that's hitting them up, right? And they're saying, we want to use this beat. What do you think are like some checklists, some very bare basic questions that they need to be asking to ensure that business is handled properly?
Oh, sure. I always say, even before you have a legal team, it's like, yeah, I need to send this to the team. I've literally told people to create like an email saying like producerteam@gmail.com,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you have a second person to CC, and then say, I need to know what points am I gonna get? What's the advance? I have a sample. Is it gonna be pre-approved? Because you want the label to pay for it and not you.
Mm-hmm.
What are gonna be my sound exchange royalties? And then also I would say, am I getting revenue? Like, what kind of revenue am I getting? Is it net revenue from all sources? Is it limited to like,
Mm-hmm.
retail streams only?
Right.
Like, I would ask those questions, but at minimum, ask the points, ask for the advance, ask for sound exchange royalties, and ask for pre-approved sample. Those are the hardest things that I have to deal with. So those four things I would say to mention.
Now, follow up. And I got a question that's related, but a follow up I have. This is my questions, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all gonna have to
Okay.
wait. Okay, I'm talking to my friend. All right, y'all be cool. In the best case scenario, it would be amazing
Mm-hmm.
to ask these questions and then have the professionalism be represented on their end that says, here's what we can offer,
Hello?
or here's what this.
Sorry.
Can you hear me? Are you there? Are you
Yeah,
there?
yeah. It's the AirPods.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes they just, yeah.
Okay. But let's give a scenario. This person says, hey, you got a placement. Cool. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for using. I think we might have lost you. I think we might have lost her. Why is Curtis King in looking like a PlayStation graphic? All right, let's give it. There it goes. There it goes. Okay. Yeah. You good? I was talking to myself for a second. It was a clone of me.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. Hello. We're back.
It's all good. It's all good. Technology will always. It never fails. So, see, they don't want us to answer this question. This question's
It's the
too
label.
important.
Sony and Universal was like, don't answer this
They're
question.
like, don't answer this
Yeah.
question. We gotta keep them dumb. Person represents, let's just say it's a manager. Let's say it's a homie of somebody who's there, and they're saying you got a placement. Then you tell them, you ask these questions, and let's say either they refuse to answer them because they're like, you're lucky that we're even talking to you right now, which is, I think, a lot of the attitude that a lot of these folks have with younger producers. Like, you need us more than we need you. That's one end of it. And two, what happens when they start getting into some gangster business? What happens when it becomes what happens when it becomes, you gonna get what I say you get? Do you tell them no? What I mean, I know it's a loaded question, but that's really what I'm getting at is when those real life scenarios occur, what should we be looking to do?
Okay. So if you're not going to get so like specific, even if they're like Murder Inc., right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Death Row,
Mm-hmm.
pre NFT, like pre Snoop Dogg, who seems pretty
It's a
chill,
different
right?
death row. That's a different death row.
Right. Like pre like 90s Death Row, when like the death part was actually really a part of it.
It was
right?
actually happening. Yeah, it was on brand.
Exactly. Too much so. I would say honestly, I've worked with Universal, Sony, and Warner as far as that's concerned. Now, I know what you're referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a more independently based distributor that works with a major.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, and before you say like I'm not gonna agree, just ask for the deal points. Like, don't even say like, can I get the points, the advance? Just like, oh, what are the deal points on this?
Mm-hmm.
and they'll tell you what it is. Now you can make a decision of whether you want to agree to it or not, but more than likely they're going to have an attorney on the artist side who's going to be sending you paperwork anyway. Every single one, whether or not, they're going to send you a producer agreement. That producer agreement is going to come from the artist because the artist is going to be paying you, the producer, not the label. And then you're going to deal with an attorney regardless. Now, whether the attorney is willing to negotiate with you is a different situation. But if they want to even like initially deal with you, they're either going to give you the deal points outright, or you just ask for what the deal points are and they'll tell you. And then from there, you can decide if you want to go get an attorney. And if you need a free attorney, there's so many. Like I charge $250 an hour. I know I'm not in everybody's budget. There's Harvard Rap, which Harvard Law School have called something called the Recording Artist Project. You can sign up ahead of time and see if they can review it for you. There's legal services like Volunteer Lawyers Association in New York, in New Jersey. I actually made a 50-state legal challenge. So like if you go to my page, I did every state. So there's places for you to go, but just ask for the deal points, whether they're gangster or not. Because I mean, everyone is kind of, because they're going to strong arm you because they have more money than you.
Right.
But they're going to want to deal with it because what happens is if they don't do things the proper way, and let's say you don't have the money right now, there's an attorney, there's somebody who's willing to deal with you maybe on a free level, just for like looking good or being able to like help their firm like look better. Or even if it's on PR, you know what I mean? Or you can sue on your own. There's like a small claims court in copyright too that they're creating. So you have options.
Yeah.
So don't think just because they're a bigger business than you, they need your beat. They're not going to be able to create on their own. Even with AI, right? They still need somebody to like generate the prompts. They need somebody to do these things for them. So you have more power than you think. Don't be afraid to ask, what are the deal points? And you can say no. And then if they decide to use it regardless, then you can sue them plus damages because they did that on purpose.
This is why we had to have
And if it's punitive damages, that's like ×3. So like if it was $100,000, now you have $300,000 plus punitive damages award of like $600. So you have $600,000. You're like, thank you for stealing my song. Make sure to register the copyright and have a good day.
I need to activate this round of applause right there, just for that answer alone. Like the amount of stress I'm sure that you help relieve from a lot of folks out here who feel helpless. And I've been in that situation where you feel helpless. You're like, everybody's giving you applause for getting this placement, but it's like, I don't have anything to show for it except for your applause. Domino Myers said, if I get a placement tomorrow, how should I go about getting an entertainment lawyer to look over the paperwork? It's kind of a twofold question, but yeah, that was a question.
Okay, that's actually pretty easy. So if you get a placement tomorrow, first of all, congrats on your placement, right? Number one. Number two, so I would say respond to whoever's sending it to you, whether that's the attorney or the manager. It's usually the manager sending it to you, and say, hey, like I'm gonna look over the paperwork. I'm going to have don't ever say lawyer first. Say, I'm going to have my team look at it, right? And then that gives you some time. And usually, they're not expecting you to give it to them tomorrow. And then what you want to do is look for an entertainment attorney. So you can look, there's the Black Entertainment Lawyers Society, which is BESLA, BESLA. Or you can look up the Volunteer Lawyers Association in your state, and they can help you usually for free. Or you can have someone like me. You could have a place where you're like, okay, I want you to work on something for me. So usually people just send me an inquiry, or they pay for an initial consultation. And they say, hey, Samara, like I have this contract. I need you to look over it. Like usually I tell people to pay the 30 minutes for $100. And then if it ends up being like a really short, producer agreements aren't usually that long. So let's say it ends up being like $250 for me to do it because it's pretty straightforward. You're not gonna, you don't want to negotiate anything. You just want to understand it. Then, it ends up being like $350 that you pay. Or you go to a free list. If you go to the Volunteer Lawyers Association for New York, like look up the list. They have a list of free legal services. They also, if you go to My Reels, look up your state and free legal services. Look up a law school in your state, free legal services. So start doing that now before you get the placement. So that way you already know who you can contact before, so you're not scrambling. Because that's the hardest part. You've gotten a placement and you're like, oh man, I got to find an attorney. So do it ahead of time. Look for an attorney ahead of time. And then by the time you do get your placement, you can be like, all right, I already know who I'm going to.
The gems are abundant. I feel like Yoda. The gems are abundant with you.
The tiny Yoda? Because tiny Yoda is very cute.
I don't know if I ain't been up on game. I just saw the memes. But
Okay.
the one JPTV says, when is the absolute time to get and keep an attorney on retainer? Oh, you got
If you
money,
are
money.
getting, yeah, I like that. Hit me up.
Got money, money. Oh, you
If
got
you are
money, money,
getting,
huh? Okay.
what is it? Quinta said. Quinta Runs is like, oh, he got money.
He got,
If you,
shout out Quinta B. Uh-huh.
I love her. I love her. What I would say for you is if you are at 2 or 3 placements a month, or you're averaging, let's say I would say about 5K
Mhm.
on average a month, then you want to get a retainer for an attorney. Because attorney retainers are usually start at 2,500 usually.
Yeah,
So
so you got
it
money.
needs to make sense monetarily. So yeah, I know a lot of people who have beat stores. They come for retainers because they're making quite a lot from the beat stores actually. So those are the people that usually are like, okay, I just need a template or I need to go over it. I'm doing licensing, that type of thing. And a lot of times you actually may not need an attorney. I know this sounds crazy for me to say this, but you may not need an attorney on retainer if you just kind of need to know how to deal with a certain type of contract. Like people who do licensing, they usually ask me to look over one. I explain it to them, and then the remaining licensing agreements are pretty similar. So now they know how to decipher it for themselves.
Okay, that's. Hold on, I got my applause now. Hold on. There we go. Okay, you probably can't hear it on your end. Matter of fact, let me share audio on your end just so you can enjoy in this auditory experience because, yeah, I'm telling y'all, the gems are abundant. I just knew. I'm telling y'all, I told you. Look, I told y'all. Like that one meme, I told y'all. You're gonna stop playing with the latte lawyer. Okay, let's see. So let's talk about copyright. And this is actually a question that comes here from Low Frequency. He's asking a question. Low frequency. Yeah, he actually, and that's I said the same thing because he submitted some music on Monday. Okay, Low Frequency. Okay,
is
I
it like
see what
sexy
you're doing.
R&B? I feel like he's giving me like sexy R&B vibes.
Funny enough, he was making like some 80s like R&B-ish like Vice City type of vibes. I was like, okay. And he, you know what I'm saying? We got some talent in here. All right. With that said though, so we got a question about what is the cost of copywriting per song. Before we jump into that one though, I think just can we zoom out for the bare basics for folks who are in here since you've been killing all of that. But what is the purpose of copywriting? At what point should one be copywriting? And I ask that because I always have the argument of I'm kind of glad I didn't copyright my first 3 songs.
Technically, you copyright. It's copywritten.
Talk to
you
us.
just didn't register it.
Copyright 101. Talk to us about
okay.
what is that? Yeah.
Let me put on my professor hat for a moment. Okay, thank you. So when you create an original work of art that's in a fixed medium, right? Mm-hmm. So it's on your hard drive, it's on an album, it's on, I don't know if you have a tape, I guess, on one of those, then it can be shared and played to somebody else. You have a copyright. You own that song. You have 100% ownership. You can license it. You can use it however you want. You are the king or queen or gender non-conforming person of your domain. Okay, right. That's yours. Now, if you want to protect it, right, from other people using it, and you want to make sure that you can go ahead and get them in trouble for using it, get money for using it, we're not asking you to use it, then you have to register your copyright. Okay. That's what you didn't do. You didn't take that second step and register your copyright. And that's where the problems come. Because if somebody steals your song and you do the DMCA, let's say you do the DMCA takedown notice, and they're like, well, did you register it? Because that's been an issue sometimes. And you're like, no, I didn't register it. It's like, well, we can't know if it's actually yours. When you're saying register, you're talking about with the PRO? No, register it with the Copyright Office, the U.S. Copyright Office. Okay. Even when you like, that's a good question. So when you register with the PRO, that's to collect royalties, but they'll tell you that registration with ASCAP and BMI is not a copyright registration. It just allows you to collect money on it. Because remember, you have your copyright already. That registration allows you to go ahead and protect your music. So you copyright it at your house, you can share it. Now it's yours, you can share it. But if you want to actually go ahead and protect it from other people's use, you got to register it. And that's that second step that you didn't take. And just to nail home this question, thank you, Tyra. I see the super chat that came through. Thank you, sis. What would be the cost
per copyright?
I'm literally going to the fees at the U.S. Copyright Office right now because they always end up charging more
They got inflation
to
prices.
file. You know how it is. A standard application for, and there's different types of copyrights. I don't want to go too far into it. It's $65 per song. Now, what you can do is there's ways to get around it. You can register unpublished works, which allows you to collect, I believe it's up to 10 songs at once before you release it. And that was actually ends up being 65. And if you do a single author, so as a producer, this is perfect. If you do the loops, the beats all of yourself, like all by yourself, you can pay as a single author for $45 because you're the only person that made the song. So producers have this like really great way of paying less money because you're the only person that touched it. You produced it, you made those songs for it. It's just you, nobody helped you, then it's $45. And you can file it under that single author application instead of paying the $65 for the sound recording and the $65 for the composition.
Come on now.
And let me check the number of unpublished works. If you do unpublished works, then you can register a couple at one time for that $65 before you release the music. So let's say you made it, you haven't released it yet. I'm looking at the copyright circular, unregistered works. But yeah, you can keep asking questions. I just want to make sure I have the right number.
We appreciate you doing that in real time. LDEPOV says, hello, thanks for the opportunity. Is it more beneficial to start an S Corp versus an LLC?
So glad you asked that question. An S Corp's not an entity. And I'm tired of people saying that on the internet. That's a lie. It makes me mad. I apologize.
Talk about it.
Okay. So you don't start an S Corp. What happens is you start an LLC. And then you choose to be taxed like a corporation. A domestic corporation, mind you. So that's a taxation form that you fill out to be taxed like an S Corp. And that only benefits you if you're making like up to like, let's say 100K. Because if you get taxed as an S Corp, then you got to pay quarterly. Right? There's more restrictions when you're taxed as an S Corp. So your question, though it is a good question, is always start your LLC first. Every attorney you know is going to tell you start your LLC for the liability. Also, you get a business bank account. You can get a business credit card. It just makes your life so much easier to get an LLC. And then that money that you spend in your LLC, you can go ahead and you can take what we call your Schedule C, and then you can reduce your tax liability. So let's say you spent $2,000, $3,000 on your business, because you producers spend a lot of money on, I don't know how, these technology is expensive. That mic is expensive. I already know that already. You got a little boom situation.
This little thing. This little thing. I got this off the Dollar General. I don't know what you talking about. Okay.
Wait, the $1 million General is what you mean? But anyway, we'll let it go. I'm not gonna put you on blast.
People just be throwing stuff out from my front door. But no, you're right. So it's very expensive.
Right. So you deduct all of that. Let's say that you spent $20,000 worth of deductible expenses, and you made $30,000 in the year from like everything else that you did. You subtract that $20,000, you're actually only, according to the U.S. government, making an adjusted gross income of $10,000, and now you have a bigger tax refund sent back to you because of all the money you spent on your business. It's much harder to do that when you're a sole proprietor. So the LLC has so many benefits; it's just worth it. Even the money to spend to create the LLC can be deducted.
Yeah.
So create your LLC if you're making enough money to make it make sense for you to have the S Corp, usually so you can avoid the self-employment tax. Then do that. But the S Corp is only if you're making a certain level of money that it makes sense tax planning wise to then register as an S Corp.
Look, the bars are abundant. There was a second.
Did that make sense to him?
I hadn't seen any.
Or is it gone? Okay.
No. He said hot. Oh, he's still asking more questions. He like, you answered that one. I need another one, but let me move through some of these right here. These are great questions. This is what I'm talking about. That's all I wanted to hear. I just wanted y'all to ask these questions. You ask your friend that, I know some things. I don't know any of this. You know what I mean? So, Chris A.K., I kind of feel like this is going to be one that's going to be how you did the last one, where it's like you kind of move some things around to make more sense. But he says, what are some of the avenues that independent artists can take against brand infringement, name falsely used, and etc.?
Okay, that's a good question. So there's two parts to that. you have what we call your name, and especially with AI, because I don't know if you know what's happening with, well, everybody knows what's happening with AI, but there's a bunch of artists who are actually suing, I believe, I think is it Mastodon? One of the AI generators for use of their like style. It's a whole thing. But for your name and likeness, you have a copyright in that, so you have to send a cease and desist, and then you'd have to sue. If they're using your name like your trademark name, you can send a cease and desist, but you'd have to use like a trademark registration. So it really depends, like what exactly do you mean by infringement? Can he clarify that? Like,
I'm looking at it right
and
now.
what context is he using it? Oh, and the unpublished works that you pay $65 before you release it, it's 10. So think of it this way. You have 10 beats sitting on your computer, you haven't released them yet. You register those 10 works. Those 10 works are not protected for $65 instead of doing a single one. You get less money for that, mind you. If there's an infringement, they're going to do it off the 110, but it does save you a lot of money, especially since producers have like a million beats on their hard drives. I know this for a fact because I've gotten some discos with like 70 beats. I'm like, this is just a lot. So.
Right. Can we break down I don't know if these are categorized as IPs, but the trademark, copyright, the restricted, because there was a point in time where before I had more information on what the differences of those were, I just felt like, are people just copying and pasting these things on their websites at the bottom just so it looks more official, or they really have gone through the process? And the more you learn, the more I'm like, these folks ain't going through the process. So when is it a necessity to get the trademark versus the copyright versus what's the restricted joints you got going on with that? What is that first and foremost? Like a general question for those things when you're basically like you're. I see it used for websites. I see it used where somebody will say their name is trademarked, or they'll say like, "Oh, this is." But it's certain things that it feels like that doesn't necessarily fall into the category of trademark.
Okay, yeah, that happens a lot. Like I listen to a lot of podcasts, and they get trademark and copyright confused. Just I think a lot of artists do, which is fine. So a copyright protects your art. A trademark protects your brand. That's the easiest way to sort of describe it. So let's put it this way. Money Long I think she just applied for her trademark for the name Money Long, right? As a performer. So her music itself would be copywritten because she's protecting the art of her music. Her name, Money Long, as a performer, to put on t-shirts, other places, right? To sell merchandise. That is her trademark. It's protecting her business name as compared to her copyright, which is protecting her art.
Got it.
And that copyright allows her to then license it in whatever way she wants possible, to stream it, to take the lyrics and put it on a t-shirt. That would be a copyright situation that she's using. Now, if she put her name on that same t-shirt, she would then be using the trademark for it. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
And then there's a patent, which I don't do. You have to, like, to be a patent lawyer, you have to have a whole separate bar. You have to have a science or math background. And a patent, it helps you protect an invention. So let's say I created a new type of headphone, right? For ladies who have afros that don't like bring our hair down. If they had it, I'd buy it. Yes, right? It's really difficult to find. So if they had that, that would be a patent registration that you would do, and you would get a different attorney for that. I only do what they call soft IP, just trademarks or copyrights.
Ironically, one of the earlier questions they asked, they said, can you patent a way of doing business?
You can patent a system.
Patent a system.
You can absolutely patent a system.
Okay.
Yes.
Deuce Drayton asks, what happens if you started an LLC, open a business bank account and everything, but didn't renew your state business license after the first year?
I love that question because it happens so much. Okay. I think this is the only thing I'll say that's good about the government. As long as you pay them, they're fine. So what happens is you're going to pay a fine usually. In the state of Florida, if you file late, it's a $400 fee on top of you paying, like not paying on time. So usually if you just contact them and say like, what's the amount that I need to pay to basically renew my business, they'll tell you how much it is and you can start using your business name again. You should be fine. So, but I wouldn't wait more than a year because if it ends up being like 2, 3, 4 years, it gets really expensive.
Mm,
So yeah, it's easy. Just contact your Secretary of State, ask what, the fee to renew would be, and then pay that as soon as you can.
okay. Miss Lyrical Penny says, how does having entities within an LLC work?
Ooh, I like her question. She's already ready to set up a dynasty. Good. All right. So you can have an LLC, and then there's two ways to do that. You can do what we call a DBA, which is doing business as.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, let's say, can you give me a name of an LLC that you want to name
Just make up an LLC?
it? You know what?
Or
Sus
just
Bunny
make
Beats
sus
LLC. I'm
sus
using my favorite person.
sus
Sus
Nah,
Bunny
Darnell Beats LLC. That's Darnell. You talking
Dar.
about? Yeah, that's
You think
Darnell.
Darnell's making a full business? He doesn't look like the kind of person.
He got a demeanor to him that's like Mr.
Right.
Wonderful. He I don't know. Maybe he got a business, but yeah, the
How
worst
about
beats
we
the
put
worst beats ever.
Darnell Hoodies Emporium LLC since he loves them so much.
That sounds
You,
important.
All right. So Darnell Hoodies Emporium LLC is a business, right?
Mhm.
Now, if he decides that he wants to still have the same LLC but have a different name that he's operating under, which is what we call a DBA,
Mhm.
he could then call it Darnell Beats LLC. So doing business, so it's Darnell Hoodies Emporium, same business, but the nickname that you're going to be legally allowed to use is Darnell Beats.
Mhm.
Okay? That's a DBA. Now, and that usually costs like way less than creating a new LLC. Let's say I'm going to use Florida prices, but Darnell LLC is 125 to create. Okay.
Mhm.
To do a DBA as Darnell Beats is $50. So now that's 175. Now, if you want two separate entities because legally you want to protect yourself
Mhm.
from the parent company, what you can do is have Darnell Hoodies Emporium LLC and then Darnell Hoodies Emporium LLC. A business can own another business.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that Darnell Hoodies can then own and register for an LLC, Darnell Beats. And now that's what we call the parent company. Darnell Hoodies is now the parent company for Darnell Beats,
Mhm.
but they're still separate entities. So if there's a lawsuit, there's a lot of places where the parent company is not going to be liable or have reduced liability for this subsidiary, which is different.
See, and that's where I feel like it gets dangerous sometimes with some of these deals that I've seen as a younger artist come across the table when you're doing business with someone and they understand that system of, like you said, there's certain things that you could categorize your business under that give you certain protections. And I had to have somebody explain it to me, but they were like, you notice how the only government names on this contract are ours? He's like, you don't think that's a little weird? He's like, it kind of gives them an out to where if something goes wrong and they file Chapter 11, they kind of just, what we've signed on to was something that couldn't necessarily, if our funds got affected by a situation that just went left, it appears that their business is the only thing that suffers and not necessarily things that are tied to their personal finance. I don't know if that was.
No,
Yeah.
I see your point because but the thing about, especially since most of, I believe your audience are producers,
Mm-hmm.
that's more of an artist situation where they get paid like revenue from the label.
Mm-hmm.
And usually what happens with artists, with producers, even if they get paid points, which, is bad if let's say like Universal folds tomorrow, right? You still have your advance that they paid you, hopefully within a reasonable time, but usually it's not reasonable. And then you have your points, but remember through your PRO. So they'll still pay you. Sound Exchange will still pay you.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that you're going to miss out on is those revenue royalties. And what you can do as an artist, I would tell you, if you are a producer, it is a better idea to have an LLC because then you would do what we call a loan out corporation. So let's say that Darnell, right? He's
Mm-hmm.
now an artist. He decides that he wants to do some work for a label. So Darnell Beats LLC, right, would have it be what we call FSO, for services of Darnell. And then we would ask for them not to have like basically a personal, what is called an inducement, but we're going to call it a personal guarantee.
Mm-hmm.
So that way only his business would be liable. Same as the label.
Mm-hmm.
So the label would have to pay the lender would pay Darnell. And if in a perfect situation, because sometimes you have better attorneys than others, they may not have that inducement language in there. So then you're not personally liable for anything. And so it's the same situation. You're basically putting yourself on even footing with that label.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
You're going to make Darnell feel very important after this. He's like, I'm big business now, Curtis. I can't really do any business with you anymore, Curtis.
Darnell beats FSO, and then, Curtis King
it.
TV. So that way he knows that you have to deal with Darnell's people before you speak with him directly.
At the end of the day,
yeah,
it's Curtis King Records,
So for her entities, what she's talking about, I would suggest that she go to like a free legal service in her state and say, hey, I'm looking to figure out what my business planning is, and explain why she wants separate entities. Because if you can explain why you want separate entities, then it tells you the best way to go ahead and set that up. For instance, if you want to put your IP in what we call like a separate bank, right? So that way, let's say Darnell Hoodies gets sued, but we don't want to have your IP compromised, like your trademarks and your copyrights. You make a completely separate business, which is called a holding company. All of your IP is going to be there in a holding company, even in a trust. Because if it's in a trust, it's really hard to find out a trust. That trust keeps everything that's related to your assets. And then if Darnell Hoodies gets sued, your trademark, all of that won't get compromised because they'd have to try to get it from the trust. But the trust doesn't have standing. So that question's a good question, but it really is sort of like not one size fits all. It really based on like, what are you trying to do with your business and why do you want these separate entities?
Yeah. Look, just can we just show some appreciation? First, y'all running these questions off, which is always a good indication that you know the information is coming in a really valid and nice pace. But can we just show some appreciation for Samara and her time and the fact that she's given all this information in a way that's so easily digestible? You could have saved me so many headaches early on. And I would have had to be like, hey, I need you on retainer because these folks out here tripping. I just felt like it'd have been a lot easier of a process. But yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Young Beans says, hello. I'd like to ask if there's a way of releasing a record with an uncleared sample.
Ooh, I mean, let's talk about it.
There's a little part at the end of this too. He says, for indie artists, it can be difficult to clear samples. I'd love to see if there's an alternative. Oh, you in trouble.
There isn't. He's not in trouble. So I'm glad he asked this question. I am very glad he asked this question, especially since I've been getting a lot of younger producers who are like, Samara, like, come on. And I'm just like, no. But there is no legal way. It's like running a red light and not getting caught, right? Like you've broken the law. Now who's gonna enforce it? You cannot release a sample without clearing it. There are ways for you to do it at a cheaper rate. So one way is to go ahead and let's say that, well, you can maybe go through Harry Fox and see if you can do it through them, but you can only release that song like by paying them a license fee, and it may still be too expensive for you. So your only options are to release it illegally. Hopefully it blows up and then somebody will contact you later to share with you later, which that happened with Old Town Road, actually. That wasn't cleared completely. The song did really well, then the label ended up paying for it. So that's an option. So there's no legal way for you to do this, but there is strategic business ways for you to do it. But just know that you're doing this illegally. I've told people this before. And I get it. I completely agree with you. There should be some kind of law that allows you to use a sample, like just when you have like a mechanical license too, like to be able to clear a sample for a fraction of the price or for a standard set price, but we're not there yet.
Are there
go ahead.
No, you're good. No, you cooking. I want to interrupt.
The other option is something called fair use, right? So if it's transformative enough, which usually a sample is, then you can use it for free. The problem that I always come up against is a 4-point test. And one of those parts of the test is like, are you commercially profiting from this? And producers fail that all the time. Unless it's like you're doing it as like a commentary or it's an educational tool or something, it's really difficult. And it's the kind of thing where you have to go to court to be right. That's more expensive than clearing the sample. So what I've had people do is do what I call a blind clearance. Sometimes they'll come to me and be like, hey, I would like to know how much it costs to clear the sample. But don't put my name on it, which I've done before.
Oh
And I'm
wow.
like, okay, this is how much it's gonna cost for this. Because sometimes I hate to say this, but some people are not so kind. If it's hip hop, they'll charge you more because of a
Mm-hmm.
bias, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, okay, this is for a hip hop song. It's gonna be used in the bridge. It's gonna be used 3 times, or it's gonna be used throughout the song, or this is however long it's gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
Then as a lawyer, I'm saying like we're just inquiring for, a client generally, but they haven't created the song yet, even though you probably already released it, but they don't have to know that. So then
Mm.
I tell you, hey, this is how much they're saying it's going to cost you. Then you at least know how much you're going to be on the hook for.
Yeah.
So then you can either release it, and then once you start making the money for it, be like, hey, I released this song, I didn't. And I know that it probably costs around this much. This is how much I can give you for the song
Mm-hmm.
after you've released it. So again, you just, as long as you can get ahead of it, it's usually fine. More than likely, they're just going to send you a cease and desist, but there's no legal way for you to infringe on somebody's work without clearing a sample first.
Okay. So they hear you, but they in here still trying to finesse. They said, "What's the
Oh,
restriction?"
absolutely.
They
I
said,
get it.
they
I
said,
get it. I absolutely get it.
they said, "What's the restrictions on what do you say? On recreating the sample?" Why y'all doing?
Oh,
Why
that's
y'all
called
doing?
the interpolation. And I love that he brought that up. Good
Yeah.
job. All right.
Uh-huh.
Still infringement. but now only the publisher can sue you. So fewer people
Your
can sue
excitement
you.
to pop that bubble. I salute your excitement, the anticipation. They were like, "See, that's what I was getting at." Oh, you still can't do that. Oh.
No. But he's not going to be sued by the label and by the publisher. Now he's only going to be sued by the publisher. So there's fewer people that are going to be coming after you, which is a good thing.
Well,
It's
and then when you
fewer
then,
people.
but then when you consider that that what was that Pharrell and Robin Thicke song got sued for a groove. I mean, really for a groove.
Yeah, that's highly disputed, and a lot of
For
people don't
sure.
agree with that at all.
But I'm
Yeah,
saying
a
the
lot of
fact that
lawyers are like, that was left.
but
That
I'm
made
like
no sense.
the fact that that's even a possibility makes you want to not even touch it with a 40-foot pole. Like, nope, I'm good. Recreate. How about we just make something new?
Well, like I said, like I used to be like, absolutely not. But the way that this industry works, even labels
Mm-hmm.
will take songs and not clear them first, and then be like, okay, well, you caught us, my bad, let me pay you,
My
right?
bad. My bad is
So,
crazy, but good.
well, I mean, there was a Tiana Taylor song that was released, and
Yeah.
then they didn't reach out to, like, I was no longer this man's attorney. They didn't reach out to me until like 6 months after the song had been released.
That's
So it definitely
just
wasn't
winging it.
cleared.
How my thing is, and I had one of my former managers told me this. He was like, "You're always angry." He was like, "You need to go." First thing he told me was, "You need to go eat a vegan burger and chill out somewhere." That was the first
That
thing
may
he
make
said
you
to me.
angrier,
That
actually. I don't know
actually
if that's
made
gonna
me
be
like,
true.
like you know what I mean. I was going through my soy motions at that point. So with him saying that, first of all, but then he said, if you want professionalism, you're in the wrong business, and that hurt. Because I
He's
think
not wrong.
he's not,
He's not
and
wrong.
you just
He's not
reconfirmed
wrong.
it. You confirmed it with the
Yeah.
companies. Like, you should not be head of a multi-million-dollar company at a major label talking about some. I mean, let's see what happens. Let's just put it out there and.
Because they have the money to do so. So that's why I'm saying, like, I've learned, to answer his question,
Yeah.
it is not legal to use a sample and not pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just take that off the table.
For sure.
However, if you decide to move forward like that, it had to make like sense for your song to really blow up for them to come after you. Number one. Number two, let's say the song goes like viral on TikTok, right? They are probably going to want to reach out to you and work something out.
What can we
Okay?
can we put a number to blow up? If you just guesstimate because I mean, I've seen friends of mine that on Bandcamp they released a song, and whoever was in charge of the Doors catalog, they sent him a cease and desist via his Gmail, and he was like, "It's like the least thing selling on my Bandcamp," and they were like, "We've been successful in suing Snoop Dogg," and da-da-da-da. They put all of this in the email, and he was like, "If they're coming after songs like this, that theory," I think at one point in time, I don't know who came up with this number. They were like, "It's pretty much after 10,000 sales, bro. If you don't do more than 10,000 sales, you have nothing to worry about. They're not going to come sue you." And it's like,
there's not a hard and fast number. It depends
okay.
how litigious these people are. Some people are really protective of their art. Even if one person uses it, they're sending you that cease and desist, which I've sent before. So I understand. like I said, you're already risking it all when you decide to release it without clearing. However, everyone's level of risk is different. And 9 times out of 10, like your friend probably got a cease and desist first before he got anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the worst thing that's going to happen 9 times out of 10 is they're going to send you a cease and desist. And they're going to say, cut it out and take it down, which then you will do. Or you can be preemptive about it, already have paid somebody to be like, okay, how much would it be to clear it quietly, like back channel this, and then say, hey, like the song is really doing well, like on numbers, we're happy to cut you in. We don't have that much money up front now, but let's put you in on the royalties. Or we can pay you $1,000 now and give you more royalties. Like Rodgers and Hammerstein, I think they got like most of Seven Rings. I think they got like 80%. She got like 20% after that. But it's still making a lot of money. So as long as you're willing to be strategic and like speak with them and not be afraid to speak with them, a lot of people are not going to say no to money. So if it's generating revenue, then you can figure something out. Or if you like, let's say you were like, oh, I have someone who's interested and they're going to sync the song and it's going to be for an advertisement and they want to sync it for like 500, right? But then you tell them there's a sample on it. Maybe that person who's going to sync it or the company that's going to sync it will pay for the sample. There's different ways to deal with it. I'm just saying it's illegal. Let's start out there. Yeah. But if you are willing,
you're going to have to deal with it.
Right. But now that you've already dealt with the fact that it's illegal, right? Now, is that person going to enforce the illegality of it? Are they going to enforce it? And if you have something that says, hey, I did this, but I have a solution as far as like money is concerned, then that's a different story.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to have to bring you back on here because especially after tax season, I feel like people are going to have a whole lot of questions because the amount of game that we're getting from you, and I absolutely want folks to, like, we don't want to obviously take advantage of the fact that you're giving us this information, but for so many of us, it's the first time we're hearing this, right? There's so many people out here who are independent and they're expected to it's almost like we have the expectation to be our own everything, our own graphic designers, our own lawyers, our own whatever the case may be. So to have someone who breaks it down like this, I know everybody in here is very appreciative. D Major, shout out D Major, said, I make beats, but I want to start a label, Major Music LLC. I see you. I get the business account. He said, I get that the business account could pay for studio time, promo, etc. How would I pay an artist?
Through the business account.
Through the business account. Still, everything is...
Yeah. Everything needs to be through the business account. You don't want to do something what we call commingling, which happens a lot. So let's say you have your LLC, but then you start paying for your personal Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase account. And then you get sued by the artist later on. If you commingle, which means that you put your personal and your business together, then a lawyer like me will do something, which I used to litigate. We used to do something called piercing the corporate veil. It sounds as bad as it sounds. And then we're going after all of your personal stuff. Yeah, we're going after your personal, your car, the car, the kids, the house and the dog. I want it all. There's like an R&B song like that.
Yeah.
That's what we're going after. And then you can garnish your wages. We can go after your tax refunds.
Yeah.
So if you're going to start a record label, treat yourself. You are at the same level. I know this sounds crazy to you because you're always going to think small about yourself as an artist, which you should stop doing. As soon as you're a business, you're considered a big business, right? Because I think small businesses, by the SBA, it's like up to $1 million or something. It's still considered a small business, which is why they're able to get these small business loans. So up to that amount, you're still a small business. So treat yourself like an actual business. If you're a record label and you are signing an artist, make sure you have an artist agreement, number one, and make sure that you are paying them from your business bank account. And if you are taking personal funds into your business bank account, always put that those personal funds, are what we call a capital distribution. So it's basically like you're giving a loan from you to your business. And then every time you take it out of your business account and you're not an S Corp or a C Corp and you're not considered an employee, and that's a capital distribution. So you're paying back the loan that you gave to yourself. If you start putting things like that, so it's going to be, if you create a paper trail, it becomes much easier for you to operate your business. And as somebody who worked for somebody else and then had to start her own business, and I get it, lawyers and producers are not as far off as you think they are. We're all providing a different service, but we all have to create our own businesses and we have to do everything. So just put the paperwork, just make notes, just capital distribution, capital, contribution. Or if you're paying your artists, and let's say you can't pay your artists up front, you can do some, equitable financing. So maybe you can't pay them all at once, but you can let them get what we call back end compensation. So after the first 3 months, you can pay them in advance of, let's say, $5,000, but you're going to pay that $5,000 over a year. Mm-hmm. And you'll pay them each quarter. So there are ways for you to sign people and to deal with them. Maybe if you don't have all the funds that you needed to begin with. And as a business also, apply for business grants. The SBA has grants. It's International Women's Day, which is why I was happy to be on here on this day, right?
We celebrating you. Yeah, you starting the month off for
us.
Just
generally. Yeah. So there's the Women's Business Center, SBA has it. They literally, for free, will walk you through creating a business plan, getting business grants, getting a CPA, walking you through how to do funds. Like I'm doing a class with them on the 22nd. Mm-hmm. So just know that there are ways for you to get money and stop considering yourself like a person. You are a business, you're an entity, and you're a big deal. So just treat yourself as such. Like treat yourself accordingly. Your mindset's going to help you get through that. So for his question, which is a good question, use your business bank account. And then also at the same time, this is a game I wish I had done when I started. If you have even 580 and up, right? Apply immediately for a business credit card at the same time that you open your business bank account. Mm-hmm. Then you already have funds that you can work with, and you can start paying the minimums on your credit card until you're able to go ahead and just afford to like generate more income. So that's important too.
Yeah, no, it's you just you was nervous. You knew when you get to cook and you was finna cook today. You came in here and you were not playing at all.
Because like you said, like I started out, I quit my job. Mm-hmm. I was working at the courthouse that weekend, and then I started the law firm. I was like, I'm sick of this shit. I left. And I had to bootstrap everything. So if anyone can, I think you learn best from mistakes. I'm a lawyer. I don't get everything perfect. I understand the law, but running a business was a whole different entity. That's why business law has become so important for me, because I don't want people to make the same mistakes. You can get funding ahead of time. You can it's already hard enough making music and trying to sell music. Like make your life a little bit easier. Yeah. On the front end, having everything already kind of created and done for you, it's going to cost you a lot less to have a lawyer and a CPA at the very beginning establish everything for you. Mm-hmm. Maybe it'll take $2,000, $3,000, than to try to like already have your business created, and then you got to go and backtrack everything.
Something I really, really appreciate. We appreciate all of this that you're sharing with us. Something I really appreciate you saying, especially for my tribe. We consider ourselves DIYers. In many ways, we consider ourselves small businesses. But I think sometimes when you put terms like small on things, or you have people say when you make it big in the music industry, these terms kind of like, in my opinion, embedded within them have these like self-demeaning, it's almost like these self-demeaning vocabulary that makes you have a different viewpoint on what you're doing and how serious it is of what you're doing. But what I love about what you said about as soon as you start conducting yourself as a business, you declaring yourself as a business, there is no, I'm just a small guy, or I'm just a small lady, I'm just small, whatever the case may be. Like you are operating your business. Like I'm not going down the street and saying, this business is this compared to this. I'm like, no, I'm going in there and I'm treating you with the same respect as any business and expecting to pay for whatever it is that you offer. So I appreciate you saying that, because I think a lot of people can't make that distinction.
They know, I'm looking at the SBA website now. It says SBA basic requirements. A small business, according to the Small Business Association, is up to $7.5 million in annual revenue. So if they're considered a small business, you know what I mean? You can make up to that amount. I think mindset's important. It's super important, and you don't know how much money you can generate. That's the great thing about art, right? Like one day you're making a song and then it goes viral, or you end up on maybe an advertisement somewhere. You know what I mean? So just, if you treat yourself accordingly, I think every artist, I always mention this, is always a big deal to me, right? Because you have so much potential, and that potential is just coming from like just you and maybe the friends that you collaborated with.
And I kind of feel like you're probably having to help a lot with the mindset of some of your clients, and that society kind of does that to the independent artists. Society still, like, that's why I'm so grateful for folks like the La Russells, because they're kind of making it another mainstream conversation that can change the way that people look at it. Now grandma who's like, well, if you're not on BET, then you're not doing big, you're not a big deal with your music. Now she has context with somebody like, well, you could be like that boy LaRussell. He got his family in the backyard and he does a real good thing. He takes care of the community. There's context and there's a reference to it that hasn't always been there, because before I feel like some names that immediately come up are like Tech Nine. But I'm like, folks are not recognizing that is a multi-millionaire business that had a foundation, a system below. I've been to Strangeland and heard the stories about how their infrastructure used to be a Montgomery Ward. Like, you have to have systems in order to do that. But now they do the merch and everything inside there. So when I hear things like that, I'm like, there's a difference between what we perceive from the outside as fans and as artists aspiring to have businesses as big as those, and there's another perception when we have society that's saying like, oh, you're not serious about your craft. I had my little cousins one time. They said, you still rapping? I said, it was years ago. I said, yeah. They said, oh, where your chain at? I was like, I don't have a chain, and I don't think I'd need to wear my chain to come see my family. He's like, you got a car? You got like a Bugatti? And I'm like, that's the perception. So I'm glad to hear that that's shifting. But what you just said right now, if you consider yourself a small business, that goes up as high as 7.5 million, you said?
That's what it says according to SBA basic requirements, yes.
That's fire. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you wanted to speak on that as another question that came through here, but I don't know if you wanted to speak on that at all. So
speak on what?
On what I just said about the perception, the mindset, and thing like that. Yeah.
So I'm going to use a personal story. When I was taking the Florida bar and trying to become an attorney, and then figuring out like what can I do outside of becoming an attorney, and it was getting real dire about the options that I could have if I didn't become an attorney. Right. There was something called, it was like a, those like keep like holding on kitty kind of posters. This one was about mindset, and it basically just said like, an elephant, why do elephants, like big elephants in circuses, they can be tied down by like this little stake in the ground with a rope around there, even though they could break free at any time. It's because when they're young, they're like whipped and like told that they can't move. And then because they become massive, they still have the mindset that if they move, even though they're huge and they could definitely leave, they're not going to be able, they're going to get in trouble and something bad's going to happen to them. So mindset is a big part of it. If you consider yourself a big artist, you are a big artist. That mindset shift follows you. So you're able to walk into those rooms and make those conversations. Yeah. I've had people who have way fewer streams. They've been able to ask for a bigger advance, more points, because they're willing to negotiate, right? The worst thing that somebody can say to you is no, right? But you have to ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get. And it actually helps a label to make sure that you think that they're small, but literally they cannot make music without you.
See, and speaking of asking,
so just keep that in mind.
I was like, speaking of asking, I'm supremely proud of the community, the DIYers in here asking these questions, because these are the questions that we got to get answers to, no matter what it may look like to somebody. It doesn't matter. What needs to be taken care of is your business, and your business is your business. And it's funny because the same little cousins that was asking me about that, they're grown up now, and they're like, I don't think you understand, cousin. Like, you were the only, because my family is mostly collegiate doctors. They've gone into like the university, and I was the first to really veer off into a creative field for my living, for my well-being. And it was met with a lot of like, no, I don't know about that one, and a lot of fight back too. And he was like, because I think now he works for one of these big basketball outlets, and he's like, man, I don't think you understand how much you pursuing creativity in a field full of, or in a family full of college going folks inspired me. And he's like, regardless if you weren't the rapper that had the chains and the cars, you had something that you wanted to do that wasn't popular amongst the family, but damn it, you made it work. So there's value to what y'all are doing.
If you can't see it, you can't be it. And I think that's important to see. And also the rappers who have the chains, they're usually the brokest. So I look for people who don't have chains. Like, they're like, oh, I got a 401k. I'm like, that's the kind of rapper I want to deal with, because that perception and reality are very different. And that's the one thing I think I learned so much from the music industry is like the perception of like who actually has money, and then the people who actually have money, you'd be surprised.
I can't imagine.
Well, not you.
when I was like, I can't imagine the people that have come into in Miami too, because that's a flashy city. That's like I remember going to like Miami. That's a flashy city. Like I can't imagine some of the folks that come in there and they like chained up, and it's like, can you give me? Can I get a discount?
Some people don't even want to pay, or they're just like they do this thing. They're like, I'm black, you're black, right? I'm like, oh, this is that conversation. Okay.
What in the sus bunny is going on there? I can't explain it. I can't explain it. So J Flow says, I want to meet respectfully your time. How are you looking like on time?
I actually gave myself until like 10 for this, so I was good. So yeah,
okay, we're not going
because it's you. I know, but I gave myself time because I remember the last time I was here. Yeah.
Yeah. J Flow Pro, and we appreciate that. He says, I have a question. Speaking of paying through your business, what are the best banks to use for your business account? Should we actually use traditional banks, or are there other banks dedicated for us?
Oh, good question. So I'm still going through my bank situations, but what I would say is have a big bank that you can use. I know Chase has like a $0 minimum, like they don't give you a minimum fee for checking.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not endorsing them. They don't endorse me, so I'm not endorsing them. But you know what I'm saying? Like Chase has one, Bank of America. And then I would also look at a credit union too. The credit union is good because usually they have more benefits. And some credit unions, when you're a member, they actually give you money back because you're considered like an equity-ish member. Like you're able to get some money back from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say have 2 bank accounts, one with a big bank, one with a credit union. And then really what you should have is like 3 accounts. One account that's just a savings account for your business where you're going to be able to pay like for your taxes, because those personally, I know that this happened to me, they pop up on you. And then you have to pay it, and you're just like, okay, that's a lot of money that I didn't expect, because your business is gonna make more money than you probably think it did.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one. And then to have that, regular checking account, that's probably what you're gonna end up paying your artist through. Because there's Zelle, there's like other options, it's more flexible. And then the credit union is a good place for you to go ahead and get through there. I know Navy Federal is a great bank. I don't have anybody who's in, but Navy Federal is like really the bank. So if you have anybody you have Navy Federal?
I had Navy Federal at one time, but don't you need to, at that time, maybe they changed it, you needed to know somebody who was serving in order to get in?
Yeah, absolutely. But usually in your family, like start, talking to some people, make some reunions, take people to lunch. Like it's worth it because Navy Federal has really generous programs. So I know Navy Federal is the only one that I know that people are really good for. But the rest of them, I couldn't tell you. I couldn't recommend, but and also if you look up NerdWallet, so NERDWALLET, they have a great list of banks that you can use as a small business owner. So I would just do your research there.
Oh, you got me feeling special. Miss Lyrical Penny just nailed home the point. She said, so 1, regular biz, 2, biz savings, and account at a smaller bank. I'm assuming there it is. Look, check you out, Miss Lyrical Penny. Okay.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but bars. In
a room full of producers and rappers, you don't know if you're able to say bars in here? Yes, of course.
Well, because I said it incorrectly once, and someone was like, "Don't you ever say that as a bar again?" So like, you got to be careful what you call a bar.
Speaking of careful too, do we need to give any disclaimers about any of the information that we've given? That was something I wanted to ask you offline, but
yeah, because you already said it's information. So disclaimer is that this is information and education. It's not legal advice. But if you do want legal advice from me, there's consultations. My consultations, I actually made them cheaper because of the pandemic. It used to be $350 an hour. Usually a 30-minute consultation is $100. So you can book that through my page. But I'm also not saying like come to me. But there are free services. I spent a lot of time as a content creator for this. Like I don't say I'm a content creator, but for this I did all 50 states. So if you go on my reels and look at your state, there's free legal services in every state. So you can contact one of those. And then there's the volunteer lawyers and accountants for the arts. You can contact them. They also provide free legal services. So I always tell people you're at different levels when you start. You have a slimmer budget when you're starting, so you need to be scrappy. There's no reason why you shouldn't get help at any level that you're at.
That part. Okay, so I wanna bring it home since we're in the season. It's that season. It's tax season. And this is
I'm not a CPA, but yes,
I know
I'll
you're not a
answer what I
CPA,
can.
but I've heard you speak on some things that I think could be very, very helpful here. But I remember the stress I had as a producer the first year I did my taxes after selling beats. And all I was being concerned with about what can I legally claim? What can, like, I'm thinking of all these things. And I kid you not, I was so nervous, Samara, that I printed out every PayPal transaction that I had that year. And your man's did really well that year. And mind you, I didn't had the book. I still got the book just because it's funny just to show people the book, like how ridiculous my nervousness was because I didn't know how much money I would have to owe. And
Yeah.
there were certain things that I was made aware of, like, well, there's expenses that you have throughout the year that you can claim those. Even in terms of, I was so blown away by the detail of some of these things where you say something's an expense, and obviously you got to talk to to somebody who's like you said, a CPA who's in there. But I was blown away by some of the laws, like with California. Like, don't quote me on this, but it was some specific law that said that you cannot claim a room if you have a child that does homework within it. Like,
That's petty because they allow you to do that. Like the federal government allows you to claim like your home for a
yeah.
little bit of time. Yeah.
But I saw that and I was like, see, this is why I'm not the one that's supposed to be doing it. I need to talk to somebody who knows some stuff, because when I saw that detail, I was like, okay. And I'll never forget, I have a really, shout out Pam. I gotta bring Pam on here as well. But first year, she said, okay, honey, without any deductions, you owe $20,000.
Right.
I
Yeah.
said, 20,000 what? I said, I gotta go to the bathroom. I need to. She's like, hold on. I went through your little PayPal book, and here's what I'm gonna tell you. She's like a straight shooter. And
Yeah.
she proceeded to go through every subscription and all these different things. So I guess my question is more of a general. I just want to tell that story, but more of a general question, because we all know, we're being told all the time how important taking care of our taxes are, especially when we're operating ourselves as small businesses, as DIYers. For that person who's like they scared, for lack of a better term, they're scared shitless, like I was that year. What's that
Right.
first step that you would suggest to them, especially when they have a business that is not the traditional business? Say they're selling beats online or they're selling sound packs online. Some people don't understand that digital e-commerce space, and they kind of like, either I've had people tell me, no, I'm not going to even open the books on this. What advice would you give for them at the very, very beginning of that?
Well, not advice in this case, but information and
Information,
education.
excuse me,
But with that
information.
disclaimer,
Yes.
I would tell you, okay, first of all, most people now are used to digital products. We're in a place where a lot of people are selling digital products, so it's not that new or different to do that. I would also say start looking for an accountant as soon as possible. And like I said, there's free accountants. So if you're a woman, look up SBA Women's Business Center and look for your state, and hopefully you can make an appointment and be like, this is my business. This is what I do. I don't know how to do any of this. How do I do the accounting on them? They'll either find you someone that you can work with, right? This is for women first. I know I'm getting to the men too. We're getting to everybody.
Okay.
But they'll help you find an accountant. I wish I had done that when I first started, because I did all mine through QuickBooks on my own. And like I did my Schedule C all by myself, right?
Yeah.
The other option that you have is there's legal clinics. Like literally, I remember when I was in law school, I went to University of Florida, which is obviously in Florida. They have legal tax clinics. So a law school student supervised by a tax attorney, who's their professor, will look at your taxes and do them for you for free. And it's actually teaching them how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another option
That's
for
huge.
you.
That's huge.
Okay. And then, like I said, volunteer lawyers and accountants for the arts. If you're in Texas, you have one just for Texas. So take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm.
Also apply to them and see if they can help you. They either charge you like less, probably like $75 or something to do it, but they'll do it for you, and they'll help you out. The only thing that you need to do is, like, I don't know, most people use Stripe. I know I use QuickBooks, and I also use Stripe for my integrations. Have everything already sort of set up ahead of time before you walk into your appointment. And if you can, I know not everybody does this, but all of your expenses, like have your bank account statements redacted, obviously. Don't put your bank account numbers. But so
Mhm.
then they can like take a look at it and see like, okay, this is what I do, this is what you have, these can be your expenses.
Yeah.
So then that way they can look at your schedule C, which is what I'm assuming Pam did for you, and say like you did marketing expenses, anything that's related to your business. If it
Yes.
helps you operate your business, you can deduct it. So as crazy as it sounds, if you are an influencer and you're buying a $3,000 Gucci dress and you put it on the internet, right? That $3,000 Gucci dress helps you operate your influencer business.
Hmm.
That's deductible. As long as you can justify it as an operational expense that helps promote your business, you can deduct it.
Yeah. See.
So
Yeah.
use, I would say those three. I wish I had taken more advantage of that when I started. So volunteer lawyers and accountants for the arts. Number one, if you're a woman, because it is Women's Month, International Women's Day, look up SBA Women's Business Center and then look for one in your state and make an appointment as soon as possible. And then I would say look at your state, like whatever state you're in, and look
Hmm.
up law schools. I think in my reels actually I have some of them, and then see like if they have a tax clinic. If they have a tax clinic, you can actually just go to that law school or have a phone call, and they'll walk you through it. And those are usually free or low cost.
And all of Samara's information is in the description. So the website, the Instagram, and yeah, the ways to contact, and really, you provide so many free tools that I'm like, if you start there, they're probably going to answer a lot of the questions before you immediately feel like, because I know that you're busy. I know that you have a lot of folks that uh, you know your stuff, and I know a lot of folks, you help to relieve a lot of stress in people's lives. Like, you and therapists have a lot in common. Right?
I don't know. I think I add to some of people's stress, honestly. Like I help, but then I'm just like, did you think about this? And they're like, I didn't
Right.
even know this was a thing.
Well, and it's funny because like I haven't had many conversations with attorneys or lawyers. Like, I've had some in the family, but it wasn't really about that. It was just about them being, extensions of the family. But it's funny, and it's gonna be a weird reference, but I've been watching. I'm a big fan of Country Wayne and his skits that he has on YouTube. I just
I'm done.
every single
I'm leaving.
morning. I'm like, is this what my grandparents infatuation with soap operas was? Because I'm sitting here watching these fictional stories like, oh, I wonder what Mike gonna do today, or I wonder what Country Wayne. So anyways, there's an example where he has a lawyer, and it's super dope because he's using these skits that are shot on an iPhone that are getting hundreds of thousands of views to teach lessons. Like, he talked about lessons in terms of the LLC, and one thing he added was his lawyer that came in and said, you operate business and a lot of people come in contact with you, and at any given point in time could take information, and he's like, I need you to have everybody around you sign in NDAs. And there's this whole few episodes where everybody that came around him, she was like, she was on it, like she was a bulldog about it. Like, he wasn't always happy. He was like, no, she ain't gotta sign no NDA. But then you're seeing in the episodes that show up how bad of a decision that was when you don't listen to your lawyer. You don't listen to your lawyer, like, and he's showing that, I think, to save a lot of people that headache. So like I said, even if they don't want to, that's what therapists do. Therapists don't always tell you what you want to hear, right?
That's true. That's true. You're right. You're
So
right. Yeah.
you out here solving a whole lot of folks, are telling them what they need to be told. And I feel like if anybody, artists and producers that are detached from reality, they need to be told on a regular basis what it really is and what it really isn't.
Just to protect yourself, I think that's important. This is probably the most predatory, and no one wants to hear that, but I would say the entertainment industry is probably one of the most predatory sectors
Mm-hmm.
out of all the sectors. So you really need to know how to like walk in there and protect yourself. And the best way to do it, especially if you're a DIYer, right? Because
Come on.
I understand DIY, I get that life. I love HGTV. I painted my own walls
Come
before,
on
right?
now.
So you
Come
want to
on
make
now.
sure that you know what tools to use to protect yourself and to really get the best result for yourself. So just having these tools, I know someone was like, why are you giving all these free tools? Don't you want people to pay you? I'm like, absolutely. But at the end of the day, like if you use the free tools, more than likely you've already like protected yourself, you've
Mm-hmm.
generated enough then to come to me. And you already have everything done ahead of time correctly. So
Yeah.
my job is easier. So just, yeah, use the tools that you have. You have so many tools in your toolbox.
And we get that because we do it. We do it with free products. We'll put out,
Yes.
hey, get these 15 drum packs, and those 15 drum packs will say, you know what, are these 15 drum breaks? And they'll say, you know what, these are actually really good. I wonder what his sound packs sound like if they sound like this for free.
Right, right.
So we
A little
understand
sample.
we understand the freemium freemium model, but what are some of those things that you have? I think you have like a template that helps.
Let's talk about the template.
Uh-oh,
So
what happened? What happened with the
I
template?
product tested.
What happened with the template? What's going on?
Shout out to Run It Back Grizzy, who was the person who like I used to help me out. He's a producer. So I was trying to make it simpler to understand for producers. Like I wanted to be like, okay, if you're gonna be the attorney in fact, so you're gonna be handling all the negotiations for your sync licenses, check here. If you already have your publishing, check here. But it was more difficult to try to do it that way. So I'm actually still working on it. So that's something that I'm working on now. I'm creating a wait list for producers to be like, help me create a simplified split sheet. I want to have that done by like the middle of the year. And then I'll have that template created. But I want it to be more of a collaboration to be like, all right, let's make it so that it's easier for you all to understand and make it just a simple split sheet, as simple as possible so you get it. So that's the template's not there just because it's been difficult to try to simplify it.
Well, all you did was just open up an invitation for in the middle of the year when you are done with that. You I mean, look, even what I got to do? I got to bring Darnell to interview you on that one. Is that episode?
You know
gotta
what I
have?
would do? Let's talk about this offline, but maybe this could be like a Curtis King thing where I do the simplified, like a collab, Curtis King
That
latte,
would be so
simplified
fire.
split sheet.
Oh,
And I
that'd
would
be
be
so
happy to
fire.
do that. That would make more sense to me,
Yeah.
honestly.
Absolutely. Well, we greatly appreciate it. I know there's a lot of folks in here who are like, okay, Miss Lyrical Penny, yes, thank you for so much for answering our questions. My cousin was just telling me to look into an entertainment lawyer since I'm doing sync licensing.
Oh, that's a wonderful place to be in. Claps to you for doing sync licensing.
You said that's a
I know
wonderful.
how you feel about it,
You
Curtis
said that's a
King, but
wonderful place to be in. I must be nice. It must be nice. All of y'all living y'all best life. I'll be watching Clint music. He be looking like he ain't got a stress in the world from his sync opportunities. I'm like, why did I have to get the stress for once? Welcome to my life. Oh my gosh, like it's because when you said that earlier about how like the companies, just because they multi-million don't mean they're not gonna be out here. See what happened was like they're on that energy
right.
too, and I meet some of the. I'm not gonna be disrespectful. I just meet some companies that they have the wrong people talking to the music people. I had somebody one time told me, they said, Curtis, man, the big dogs in there, they like what you're doing, but I think what they're looking for. Wait. Did they say this, or are you telling me what you think? What I think they're looking for is for the commercial, right? More gangster. Okay, sir, could you give me a reference to what you mean more gangster means? Like B.O.B. and Lil Wayne. Okay, so you picked the least gangster song in Lil Wayne's catalog. Okay, so do you mean just dark? Is what we're getting at? Is that like does it have like, are we talking about minor key? Like what they put them people in the rooms with me. I never get the musician that's like, hey bro, all we're looking for is this. Da-da-da-da. They always get me in somebody that's like so specific, but then at the end of it, they be like, I mean, I don't know. I'm not the musician. Good luck though.
You know what I would say? And I get that because that's the problem with the A side and B side. We need in the music business, a lot of people, entertainment generally, you don't have artists in the room making the business decisions. That's another reason why I'm like, I need artists to understand the business more. It would be a lot easier if people who are making the art are also handling the business. But I have a friend, her name is Summer Blackman. She works for Grayson Music Group. I don't speak much about like music supervisors or production companies, but I know Grayson Music Group is a legitimate business. They do a lot of like music supervisor placements and stuff. If you already have like a really good background, I would say go to them. Mammoth Music, they're out of Portland, Oregon. Go to them. Resin 8, so RESIN, and then the number 8 Music is another good place. So there are places that like are artist driven that are better at explaining sync and sort of working with you. I think you worked with, and it's not your fault because it happens. Like not every business is built the same. But you work with a business that wasn't so great to work with.
You forgot the S. You forgot the S. You meant to say
Forgot the
business.
S of what?
Businesses.
Businesses.
And why? I'm like, that's when I was like, I understand now why producers sometimes are so skeptical of any program they get into, because once you go through, let's say you're the person that went through 4. Let's say 4 is the number. 4. You paid for 4 different products, and then that is the only interpretation that you have of producer powered products, and they were all underperforming. I'm not saying that's a fair assessment of those, but I'm saying that's where I'm at with it. You gonna time me out? Go ahead, time me out.
No, I'm not timing you out. This is a question. Let me ask you, because
Yeah.
you have a very beautiful, cute child. You have a wonderful family.
Thank you.
Before you found the woman for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many people did you date before you, like, think of it that way? I know you didn't like that answer, but that's the truth.
What you mean.
You gotta go through a lot of.
I was always in the church. I ain't never really
Right.
out there
Okay.
like that.
Fine.
I just was minding my business, and like out of nowhere, like I was out of Jack in the Box. She was like, "Hey," I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And then that's when I started my dating career. Mm-hmm.
I got you. So let's not use you. Let's use The Bachelor. Like, you go through a lot of contestants before you find the right one. Okay, that's the same with music supervisors and like placements.
Yeah.
I would look at referrals. I would start with the Guild of Music Supervisors. If you're gonna look for placements, look for people that won awards. Look for the person who won I think Guild of Music Supervisors just had I looked at Digital Music News.
Okay.
They just had their awards now. You can look at the list of who won. Then look for those companies.
Genius. Oh, that's genius.
So if you're going from the top of the top, like those are the people you want to reach out to. See what they did. See if it's like, Clint Music has this whole thing too where he talks about it for him, but like see what they did, see if it's similar to what you do, and then reach out and be like, oh, I heard you won this award. I really love what you did with this commercial.
Yeah. I
have this type of music. Let me send this to you. So maybe don't let people find you. Look for the opportunities that work for you by finding the right people for you. I think that's usually the best way that things work.
This just talks to your genius. Like you did this because for those that don't know, like Samara's helping me out with some situations that I've had for years bubbling that I never even looked into. I gave up on them. I was like, there ain't no money that's gonna be there. And one phone call with Samara was like, had the younger producer Curtis like, there's a chance we can get paid for this. So without going into details, that feeling of just like, yeah, that there's folks out there that understand this, that can break the process down for you in a way that is easy to digest. I'll say this. What you just said right now helped me to understand the common denominator between all the sync opportunities I had. It was
they were sent to you, right? Like they came to you.
It was the homies. It was the homies that sent somebody. Not you mic dropping. Not you. Not you with the Chris Rock mic drop. I'm done. You know what? You deserve that. After today, you put up 50 points, 40 rebounds, 20 assists, no turnovers. That's what after today, the numbers you put up, you could drop the mic. That's what they all had in common.
That means a lot since I'm very uncoordinated and I don't play sports. So thank you for that.
You Steph Curry. You Steph Curry with a 3 now. That like we see you out there cooking. But that's the thing they had in common is that I didn't even have to tell you that. It was all homies that was like, oh man, I got this little situation right here, and it's people I trust, obviously, but it's like I got a situation here, and every single time. That's so crazy because it spans like almost 10 years of all those sync opportunities that my brain is blown. Not only did my homies refer it to me, they weren't hands-on in the process for every single one. Let me find out. I feel like the main character in the Tyler Perry movie. Everybody did me so wrong. I just looking for somebody that knows my worth. And I feel like I'm at the end of the movie now. Like I can finally work with a sync company. I'm gonna go join Clint Music's program, and I'm about to go find me a sync opportunity to know how to treat me right.
Right. Because you are important, okay, and you are special, and you deserve all of that. Absolutely. So
for those who are, I know it's probably because I got an older demographic in here. Sometimes they probably like, Curtis, I need you to be serious about this conversation about law. You know why I feel so comfortable doing that? Because Samara, what's one of your favorite series on here? On this channel?
Oh, Bad Beat Battle. Bad Beat Battle got me through the pandemic, the panini, all of it. Yeah, and it recently came back. I saw that one. And honestly, I needed that. It's nice not to take yourself. I think it's important not to take yourself so
Yeah,
seriously, no matter what you do, because it's a hard industry. You gotta laugh at yourself a
that
little bit. You
part.
gotta laugh at it. And I think that's also important. Like I try to make things that are funny. I'm not very funny, but I do my best.
You was getting them
But
off today. Nah, you see every time you say that you do something. You was getting them off today. Nah, you can't even claim that. We gonna
it's
be.
because you know what, collab. It's because I'm working off good energy. I'm working
We
off
got
good.
more to do. We got more to.
But yeah, I
Sus
think
money hasn't even got
it's
involved.
important.
Okay?
It's important to be serious about your craft. But I think, being able to talk to someone who makes you feel comfortable is the first step to anything.
Mm-hmm.
So like all the attorneys that I know are like really personable people. Like I'll shout them out right now. Like Roger Notario, Apollo's counsel. You can follow him. Amy Arefo, she's out of Atlanta. She's amazing. She actually works with Earn Your Leisure. She's their attorney.
Nice.
And 85 South. So it's the attorneys that are like personable, that have a good like sense of humor, are the people that are best to work with, because they understand this industry is ridiculous, and you just have to be patient, and you gotta really understand what that person wants and like really go through it with them. So that's why I enjoyed your page from way before, like I said, and I really enjoyed the Bad Beat battles because they were so ridiculous. But I've seen people like that before, like Sus Bunny, Darnell, like all those people are
Have
like
you met a
real
few
people
sus
I met
bunnies?
before in real life.
You met a few sus
Oh,
bunnies?
I know you said he's not reggaeton. I get that, but in Miami, like in Miami, a lot of sus bunnies, a lot of sus bunnies.
See,
Absolutely.
people be thinking like people don't understand like Sus Bunny. The character Sus Bunny is a collection of all of the ridiculousness that I saw on panels. Where I'm looking at the person, and I'm looking at the people, and I'm looking at the person. This is the Truman Show. This is a Truman Show. This ain't real. Y'all playing me right now. There's no way that he gave you that answer where he said, they were like, question I have is how do I copyright my beat? And they said,
Believe in yourself.
believe in God. You feel me? And stay 10 toes down, my boy. Next question. And I'm like, they're clapping for that. So it's a sigh of relief when you know that other people see that same stuff going on, because there's a lot of characters that exist that do that, and it makes it that much more challenging for the folks who really love what they're doing and really stand behind their craft. And we know that that's exactly who you are. Like, you're passionate about this, so much stuff that you're just able to pull resources for, that I'm like, nobody has all those resources sitting in their head, because it's just good small talk like that. You have to care.
So I just pull it out whenever I need it. But yeah, absolutely. And another thing I was gonna say to you and to, I think it should help like bolster artists. I had a whole conversation with an attorney who was like part of like the division in LA. I won't say her name, but it's her, honestly, for entertainment attorney, right? And she was telling me like, oh, your client won't be able to collect their mechanicals as a writer. And I was like, publishers collect the mechanicals. The more you know, the better off you're going to be, because there are people who are heads of whole departments, like whole music departments, whole contract departments, that don't know anything about music, that don't know anything about the law. They just happen to work in that department. So the best way for you to like deal with these people is to make them feel dumb, because you already know them.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself in a position. So you actually can have a lot more strength knowing this information before you walk through. So if you're like, hey, and I'm already ready for my deal points, I know what the percentages are. Like if you're a new producer, you should be expecting between 1% to 3% on your points.
Yeah.
And right now the averaging about 2 points for most producers from Universal, Sony, and Warner. You know that? And they come back to you and you're like, I'm getting 1 point. I was like, well, my producer friends are getting 2 points on average. And Digital Music News says they're getting 2 points on average. Why am I getting less than industry standard?
Yeah.
Right?
See.
If you are able to provide that information, which mostly the attorneys and your managers may do, right? Then you're able to put yourself in a better position to give yourself more, because you've already done the research to do that.
Gotta know how to talk the language before you can talk it, and when you talk it, they'll recognize it as the language. They're like, "Oh, you,
Absolutely.
oh, you know, you're not one of those." Okay, well, yeah,
It's a
this
different
is,
conversation. Yeah, absolutely.
or at least be aligned with someone like yourself that can be that. Like, I know there's certain situations where you have to be like, you have to be a wolf. You got to go in there and you're dealing with folks who, they're used to always being the smartest person in the room, and then they get in the room with you, and it's like, actually, that's not what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do.
Or at least you're just like, I wouldn't say I'm the smartest person in the room. I wouldn't say that they're the smartest person in the room, but I think they're used to always just being right and like not having anyone ever check them on anything. You know what I mean? So when you like, I remember one time somebody put in, you see this a lot in contracts where they're like, oh, you can't, we're going to own this, and the idea. I'm like, the copyright law says that you can't own the idea. Here's a link to this Harvard article, the Copyright Office, and this. Take this out. So the more you're able to do that, the easier it is for you to talk to them. So people just aren't used to you talking back to them. And if you talk back to them and you know what you're talking about, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be able to get stuff back. And it's going to be uncomfortable. I'm going to tell you that right now. I had a contract that lasted about 6 months of negotiations because we went back and forth on a pre-approved sample, but then we got the pre-approved sample and I got petty and I started pointing out receipts. Like, this is what you did. This is what you did. This is what you did. And so as long as you're willing to wait it out and you have the facts behind you, you can really do a good job of advocating for yourself. And don't let them intimidate you because you think that they know more. They probably don't.
And I know that happens. I know that happens. And I know, even though it's not a huge segment, it is a segment of my audience. And we are talking about International Women's Month as well. But I really feel, and I call them like my sisters, like I really feel for the female producers who go in these rooms. And it's ironically, I relate because I've been in rooms where I've been outnumbered. It's a little different. It's obviously a lot different because, I'm a guy going into these rooms. But when you're in a room where you're already outnumbered gender-wise, you're in a room where it's an opportunity and it feels like it's an opportunity that could possibly change the trajectory of your career. And they're allowing you to get started with the music and you're invested now because you've worked with an artist. Say it's an artist you've been always wanting to work with. You work with them. You got a song together with the artist. You had a session. Yeah. I can't wait to tell people about this. And then the artist fades out of the conversation and all of a sudden a manager or somebody who actually conducts the business comes there. And I feel like that's where people get the most predatory is when you're high on emotion, when you're high on the art. Like you want this to come out, right? And I think it makes so many creatives not ask the questions. The list that you gave earlier, like even asking about split sheets. I know people who are terrified to even bring up the word because like, I don't want to kill the vibe. And I'm like, the vibe you're concerned about killing tells you everything that you need to know about that room.
Yeah.
Because there's a way to do it that but I guess I say that to say, what advice do you have for those who are walking into these rooms and even knowing this, there's that hesitation and that fear of, am I overstepping boundaries?
It wouldn't be advice.
I keep doing that. Shut up, Curtis.
I know. Yeah. No, not shut up, Curtis. It's not advice. I would say this is just information for personal experience. Nobody wants to advocate for themselves. Right? It's easier to distance yourself from the business if you have somebody who is negotiating on your behalf. That's why half the times I'm hired is not because a lot of the artists that I hire me know what they're doing actually. They're very smart and understand how the law works. However, they want to keep the vibe, as you said, like in the studio. So they'll let me be the a-hole, which I always say, like, blame it on me. If something is like, they're like, my attorney said this, my attorney said that. So I would suggest, even before, if they've already, like, usually you've already gone to the room, you've done the music, it's already going to be released. That's usually the case. I wish it wasn't that way, but it usually is that way. They're going to send you the agreement afterwards. They're going to release the song regardless, or they're going to be using the song regardless. So you already know that they're not going to not pay you or not work with you because of that.
Right.
So I would just say like, all right, cool. This is like the points or whatever. Just be completely dispassionate about it and say, all right, it was great working with you. these are the numbers that me and my team went over. Or I spoke with my lawyer and I'm handling the negotiations and this is what it's going to be. If you make it so that way they can't go back and forth and say like, oh, like we only give 1%, and you're like, oh, well, it doesn't hurt to negotiate, and this is what I got the last deal, or this is what is on average. Just talk to them, not like your life depends on it, because they're willing to negotiate with you. And if they tell you no, like I said, the worst thing that they can say is no. One time I asked for like 10% on a deal for 2 producers. And they were like, absolutely not. I was like, okay, cool, 8%. Like I didn't, you just take the rejection and you move forward. Like it's fine. Because at the end of the day, they do business all the time too. And they're not going to like not move forward with you just because you've asked them for something. So I think you need to take that fear out of the equation. They wouldn't have chosen you if they didn't think that you had something to contribute, right? Your music was good enough for them to put you in the room in the first place.
Yeah, and operating out of fear.
So you need to be compensated accordingly.
Got to be compensated. And I feel like making decisions out of what you're afraid is going to happen is already, in that scenario at least, already puts you at a disadvantage because you're playing defense in a situation where if you don't have the knowledge, like if you have the knowledge, like, I think the biggest issue with the folks that we're talking about who ask that question is, well, I know I need to bring it up, but when? Like, I don't want to bring it at the beginning or the ending. Like, when? What if we do a record and don't even like it?
If you could afford it, just be like, okay, great. Like, I'm so happy to work. Like, I like to play into my, like, people think I'm nice. I look nice. I think I'm pretty generally nice. But you just work into your strengths. Like, all right, great. We're in the studio. So I worked with the lawyer before I got here. These are the points that she said for me to ask for. Or he said for me to ask
before any music is taken care of.
Before any music is taken care of. He's like, because you know what? I want this to be done super quick. So here are the deal points. So deal points on the sound recording, because this is the label you're dealing with. I know standard is like 1,000 advance. So she said to ask for, it doesn't even have to be a real person. You could say, my team told me to ask for 1,500.
Right.
Points. I would even ask for 3%, start higher, right? And then for sound exchange, I want 3% of the 45% that's diverted to the artist.
Devil's advocate, they say, that's cool and all, but like we haven't even done the record yet. Like, I just invited you to the studio. Like, you want to talk about like don't kill the vibe, as they may say.
I understand that, but I have to pay my lawyer hourly, so it actually makes it easier if I can just go ahead and get this done now. Okay, and we don't have to kill the vibe. That's fine too. Yeah. I understand that. We can get in the booth, but at least you know what, I'm expecting or would like before you have your lawyer send me the paperwork. I'm trying to make this process as easy and efficient as possible so we can release this record and not have headache.
I get that. But with all due respect, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. You're working with Sus Bunny, and I put people on. I put Michael Jackson on. Like, I put people on, you know what I mean? Like, you work one song with me could change. You sure you want to risk losing this opportunity to make your lawyer happy?
I'm not making my lawyer happy. I know you work with the label, and the label wants to already have this information before they send me the paperwork. It just makes everything easy for everyone.
You good. I
appreciate the opportunity. I do. I'm just trying to make life easy for you and your team as well, because I'm sure you don't want to deal with that headache later. If you put it in a position, I know that sounds like if you just smile and you put it in a position where you're like, I'm helping you, because at the end of the day, the label's still going to be asking you for this stuff.
That part.
I'm just helping you ahead of time. If it becomes a situation where like you don't want to bring it up in the booth or in the studio, which I completely understand, send an email afterwards. I've done that too. Where you don't even have to talk to them face to face, but like, it was so great working with you, Sus Bunny. You are wonderful. So here are the deal points my lawyer said to send to you. You don't even have to look them in the eye. And then CC your attorney or CC your manager. So there are ways for you to get around it. And then even better, because it's on paper.
Yeah. See, and now you have things that you can present to court if you have to go that far. Shout out to J Flow. He said, "Yeah, I'm replaying this section of the video 6 times later." Those are real life. There's a real life conversation. Oh, I think you might have muted up. I think the AirPods.
No,
Oh,
that's pro.
there you
Yeah,
go. There you go. Okay,
we're good.
yeah, but yeah, he said I'm replaying this part of the video 6 times. Yeah, we're gonna bring this here to a close, but I want to make sure. I'm looking at the list, and we kind of covered a lot of stuff that we had talked about beforehand. But that right there, oh no, we didn't lose it. No, we didn't lose it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, looking at another Curtis just bothers me. There it goes. Let's solve that. They don't want us to win. Khaled voice. They don't want to see us win. They don't want to see us win. They don't want to see us win. That's not what they want.
Okay, I think this should be done.
See,
Yeah, go ahead.
every time that you start to talk about like the practical information, isn't it ironic? I mean, Foyle had observations, conspiracy theories amok. Isn't it weird?
It's a little suspicious, as our friend Cardi B would say.
Suspicious?
Yeah, it's a little suspicious.
Ain't that
It's
suspicious? That was the first time that I've seen that ever played out in real time. Because I think a lot of folks are like, they got the information. There's so much information they have. But in practical use, you just literally had a conversation that could save somebody 6 hours of their life and the heartbreak that comes with, man, this song may never even come out because I didn't ask
just
you questions.
I would say it's a good. I'm glad that you walked me through it because I get like me doing it and an artist doing it is different. So I would say send the email like as information, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do it, send it. Be like, oh, what's the manager's email? Great. Send it to the manager. Make sure to have I always CC the A&R. I CC the manager. And then if you can find the person who's like the VP of A&R at the label, CC them. Have all 3 people on there. And then put the information and say, hey, it was great working with you at the studio. These are the deal points for the sound recording. Let me know who's the attorney I have to speak with to go ahead and get the producer agreement. Don't even give them an opportunity to say like, oh, well, maybe we should know. This is it. Like I'm ready to negotiate it.
This is it. So you just literally wrote a skit. We gotta make that happen now. So Roscoe the Taco is gonna hire a lawyer. He's gonna get a legit attorney with his first advance. He's like the bumbling fool on the series, but he's gonna be the one that gets the professional attorney, and it's gonna change his life. He gonna talk to Sus Bunny, who's been only giving him 1% of the record that he produced, even though he's the ghost producer. He's been doing Roscoe really bad. So to have you give that information in the form of do you know how many artists can be helped by that? I mean, I know based upon how many artists that you have helped. Ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. How about this? I'm going to shut up. Did the information that you heard today, was it helpful? Did it relieve some stress? If so, can we put can we put a coffee in the chat?
I'm so scared of this response. I feel like I'm going to get a lot of like.
No, you ain't going. No, this a family affair here. No, this is. Can we put a coffee in there for the latte lawyer? Hey, come on now. Hey now. There's more coffee. More coffee. I don't know if you can see it. Another one.
I can't, but I love it. Yay.
There's more. Like the love is there because the information is just. There it is. These folks don't lie. They would have been. Their viewership tells the whole story. They stayed here. This is a good retention for, usually I have like a producer in here that obviously has gone viral and all that is, but this is probably the most important podcast episode that I've had this year because of the nature in which you help people. We appreciate you so much.
And I appreciate the music that you producers are making. It's funny too, because the producers, this is going to be, what is the word I'm looking for? An unpopular opinion, but it's fine. Mm-hmm. But I feel like most people listen to the beat before they listen to the lyrics. Mm-hmm. The producers are the bedrock and the foundation of a song. And I feel like they forget like how important they are. So like being able to help a producer just be like, all right, the producer agreements, honestly, and also if we're talking about game, Universal, Sony, Warner, I've worked with all of them. The producer agreements are always the same. They don't change from label to label. So they look pretty similar. So you're always going to want the pre-approved sample. You're going to ask for the advance. You want to make sure you have your sound exchange included. And you also want to make sure to have an accounting provision in there. A lot of labels now are trying to make it so that you can't check accounting and you can't check the books. Mm-hmm. Don't let them do that.
Ooh,
so
that's
you want to make sure to have that in there.
That's a nasty game. Oh, that's a nasty game.
Yeah.
So I want to end on 2 notes, and like
yes.
I said, we greatly appreciate your time. I know you want East Coast time, but one, how can people reach you? I got your links in there, so you ain't got to go through all your links. But what's the best way for people to reach you if they have questions? And then second, some words of encouragement that you have for the creatives that are in here, because I know that you work hands-on with a lot of creatives.
Okay. For reaching me right now, and I always sound like a douche when I say this, but we're at capacity with clients
Woo,
for a
that's
little
good
bit.
problems. That's good problems to have right there.
But we always take consultations. So,
Okay,
and I feel like especially if you're a DIYer, sometimes you just need somebody to walk you through the steps.
that part.
So the consultations, like I said, a 30-minute consultation is usually all that's needed, and those are $100. There's the free legal services too, which I mentioned. So you can reach out there. If you have questions, people send me DMs. I like for reels ideas, I'm open to that. I'm trying to come up with like a type form for that type of thing. So if you have a question or you have something that you think would make good content, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to like look at it because being a content creator, I'm not like Curtis. It doesn't come easy to me. It's difficult. So I'm looking to
Yeah,
do
but
that.
no, you don't. You got Curtis in your corner though. So like whatever skill that you see there, I really do want to create this content because not only is it helping my audience, it's helping me. There's a lot of things that I know the surface level of, but I don't know the details of it. So I'm already appreciative.
No, and again, collaboration's key. I think that like that's the one thing I learned this year is like working and collaborating with more people has made my job easier and made me like better at it because you
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to understand like what artists are going through. Like I've even gone to the studio myself now, right? And
Okay.
like had to sit down and listen to the same 8 bars for
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah. That's that.
20
Welcome to
minutes.
our lives.
Whew, it was rough. It was rough.
Yeah.
And then as
Yeah.
far as artists are concerned, I think, and I was a history minor. You can tell I'm a nerd from the glasses, right? But I was a history minor, and I was big on like when they look at a civilization, they look at the art first. That tells
Mm.
you a lot about what you need to know about that culture and that society. And even though art monetarily isn't always like respected, like you're not giving the money for it, your impact is important. So I think you need to remember how much you give because if you list art with is integral to everything. Like have you ever listened to like a movie without the music? Like they do that sometimes. They'll
Yeah,
like really
the
take
voiceovers and all, or stuff
right.
like
It
that.
it
Yeah,
it
without it's so
completely
different.
like takes everything away from it. It takes it's so different. So like when
Oh,
you walk into these rooms, when you deal with art, like people don't be afraid to negotiate because your art is a critical piece of this.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, just I'm gonna say what my client told me once and I like know who the fuck you are. Like know how important you
Talk
are.
yo, shit.
Yeah,
I have to talk. No,
that's it.
you more than welcome
Yeah.
here. Like that piece about the history. It's so true, and it's so weird when I think about like how much pushback I got from my elders with music when I chose to do music. You can't make
Yeah.
no money at that, and it's crazy how we ignored the things like the Ernie Barnes painting on the wall, how we ignored like the Jesus painting in the other room, and it's like literally art is what the jazz the what is it called the little jazz not figurines but like the ones people hand paint and mold
I
together.
know what you're talking about. Yeah,
My
yeah,
grandma
yeah.
had a whole glass case, right? But um art is all the way around us, and I think sometimes because maybe a generation doesn't agree with the type of art that we do, they kind of project those things upon us. But yeah.
Yeah, art is integral, and there's more than one way. Especially that's why I like working with producers the most because you have so many. Like it's not like working with an artist. I love artists. Don't get me wrong. I
Mm-hmm.
work with some of them, but you have so many ways to go ahead and monetize and then move forward because
Mm-hmm.
your beats could be used for a commercial. Your beats could be used in a music library. Your beats can be used. I know somebody that creates like music for restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
Like they
Oh wow,
basically set vibes. They create vibes
that's a hell of a
like
gig.
places.
That's a hell of a job right
Yeah,
there.
because you're setting the mood for a space, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like there's so many ways to go ahead and like monetize and move forward with your art that's super important that you can do. So artists, I think, especially producers, which I work with a lot and I really like working with them because you have so many different monetary avenues that you can work through.
Mm-hmm.
Toy manufacturers, they need artists who create music.
Mm.
Greeting cards, the little songs that you hear in greeting cards,
Yeah.
that's an avenue of music most people don't, exploit or use. So just be willing to think outside of the box when it comes to your music. And there's places for you. It's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's a lot of
Yeah.
work, but it is doable.
I absolute last question. I'm sorry. AI, AI. I know you. I know you got it blocked
Ah,
off. I don't even want to go into a long take. I just want a hot take on AI because you're dealing with a producer community that's terrified of it taking their job.
here's the funny part. So and I think I got a lot of pushback on this. So I've been using Chat GPT a lot, mostly because I want to see how it works and what, we're doing here. So Dolly, I forgot the other one that's used where it's like
Mid
it's on
journey.
a Discord. Yeah, Mid Journey.
Uh,
Thank you. And then even the voice simulator, which I haven't used because I'm afraid of somebody using my voice, but I've seen people use it before too. So what I would tell artists is like it's like the ATM. So when the ATM first came out, people thought there would be no bank tellers, right? There still are. What you will see with a lot of the art that's made, if you actually use a Chat GPT or art generator, most of the music is good enough, but it's not good. So literally I looked
mhm.
for like a script. I asked Chat GPT to make a script about a lawyer, right? And her brother and like him making it. So scene one was like, I still have it. I can actually send it to you. Scene one, act one, but it was fine. It was just
Yeah.
like, okay, I'm the lawyer in this case. I'm like writing on a pad in my bedroom. My brother comes in and is like, hey, I got a record deal. I was like, oh God, here we go again, right? And
Right.
then scene two, it was actually good. It's like, did you ask for the points? Did you ask for this? I was like, oh, this is pretty good. Like there's some
Mm.
information here that's pretty good. And then act three, the man already has a record deal and he made like 100,000 streams and something. I was like, that's not how it works.
Right.
So it's a good basis for starting off. I think you can use it and you can integrate it just like with most AI. So yeah, AI is like changing at a big clip.
Yeah.
But I don't think you should be terrified, A, because there's already the copyright office already said that AI generated art is not copyrightable.
That's
That's number
huge.
one.
That's huge.
That's a big
I
thing.
didn't even hear that.
Number two, yeah. Number two, that was actually Five Bridges Law, who's another attorney, and I think he's also a professor. He mentioned that case.
Hmm.
I'll send that to you.
Okay.
So it's not copyrightable. So you can't protect that. A business wants to protect his IP. If you can't copyright AI generated art,
What's
then
what?
you as a business
What are we
can't
talking
invest in it.
about?
So you already as a producer, they're gonna want your music because it's created by you and they want to have the ownership of that IP so they can't exploit it and use it, right? So that's number one.
Mm.
Think of it that way. Number two, just use it as a basis. Like if you're collaborating with somebody and a lot of producers work on their own, maybe you want to be able to have a basis to start with, just like that really terrible, it's not a terrible script, it's a basic ass script.
Hmm.
But see, I'm cursing and I apologize. It's a basic script but the script actually can be what we call a punch up. So I'm actually going to get somebody that I work with
Hmm.
to take that basic script and make it funny because it's not funny.
See, that's
Right. So
yeah.
you can punch up the song with like people who actually are able to make it full and better. Like even with the art that you see on Chat GPT or not Chat GPT, but on Dolly,
Hmm.
it comes out really grainy and weird.
Yeah.
Like the lips are a
Distorted.
little bit off, the
Yeah.
hair is a little bit off, right? So you can actually get somebody like, this is kind of what I want.
Hmm.
Can you make it better? Right. And since it's not copyrightable, they can take that and the artist themselves can now has a better reference for what you're looking
See.
for. So I don't think you should be scared of I think it is in a place where it's moving so rapidly and so quickly that you're like, they're going to replace us. I think humans are always going to be there and needed to assist. And I think also artists are going to have to look at different ways to work around and integrate with AI and not necessarily be afraid of it. If anything, it gives you more of an opportunity to create different jobs. Like maybe you really know how to create a prompt. There are
Hmm.
people who are looking to hire people who know how to do
The
prompts in
prompts.
Chat GPT.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you just have to you're already a creative. So
Hmm.
just get more creative than you already are and show that you're important in this system because you're using AI anyway. A lot of producers don't play instruments, they use
Chord
DAWs.
generators and DAWs. Yeah. That's exactly it.
Exactly. So I don't think I'm as afraid as most people are about it. I think it's just a part of like technology changes and technology shifts and it gets bigger.
Hmm.
But you can use it to your advantage. So I don't think that people are going to be out here looking for a completely AI composer because the
Hmm.
music is not going to be exactly what they need. If you work with a composer for your let's say your film, they're going to be able to really create what you're looking for better than an AI because
That's
they're
facts.
able to go ahead and take those notes as compared to like just using other people's and blending it. So you may have a good base, like I said, if you're making like common music for like your ad or something on SEO or something like that. But
Yeah.
for more detailed stuff, I still see composer contracts still coming through. I still see licensing contracts still coming through. I still see producer agreements. So I don't think it's something you should be fearful of. I think you should use it, see what it does.
Hmm.
I think that helps alleviate. Like I made lyrics about coffee. I did that too. It was
Oh, you put
it
some
was
lyrics.
coffee lyrics. Yeah, in the style of Rihanna. I asked for a
That's your
song about
that's your
coffee in the
artist.
style of
That's your
Rihanna.
yeah. That's your girl right there.
I
Yeah.
love Rihanna. Listen, she's the best. Riri is the best. But the song itself was basic. Like it was
Hmm.
super basic. And
Hmm.
I put it on my page because I was like, I had everyone read it and everybody who read it was like, this is a basic song. I was like, yeah, there's nothing to be that afraid of because the song is super basic. So
And I feel
yeah.
like one thing I'll just want to add a little thing. I feel like I have graphic designers that are pissed off at me still because of my Dolly post. How could you do that? As much work as I've done for you, Curtis. Okay, hear me out though. If the people who create this technology, program this technology, understand how to make the connections between diffusion and the binary code, all these different things that they have to do to make it what it is. If their strength is their creativity and their ability to to think and put this together the way they do, wouldn't you being out of a job make them being out of a job? Because what you're saying is that the AI has the ability to think for itself, be creative itself. And I just feel like we're so far away from that. But as you say, as rapidly as it's moving, I understand why people think like, oh, that's it. That's it. Bank tellers are coming. Oh, no, sorry. ATMs? What is that? You're taking
Yeah, I
another
mean
one of my jobs? I can see that energy, but it's like, don't be the person that was refusing CDs because you in love with cassette tapes. It's happening
I
again.
think absolutely. And also like I would keep note of what's happening with the law when it comes to like if you notice like that even with news articles, they'll
Yeah.
have AI generated art, but they'll put like a note that this is AI generated art. It's not copyrightable.
Mm,
So there's a disclaimer there. And then also with your friend, like creating the dolly art at the very beginning, because I'm really interested in this area of the law because it's shifting so much. There literally is a lawsuit right now between a couple of artists whose art is being blended and used in Midjourney
mm-hmm.
and like they didn't ask for consent to have their art created and for the AI to learn from this,
Okay.
right? And they're using the fair use argument. So I'm keeping a tab on that and also like reporting more on this, but I really want to show, especially this quarter, sort of like using ChatGPT, using these things as sort of an assistant to your art.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't think you should just like throw out your DAWs and like throw out your stereo, your
Oh,
microphone,
that's
and just be
it.
like your art. Like I'm over.
All this money I've
Um,
been invested in this is not even worth it anymore. No, it can't be
right.
that.
And remember, a lot of people don't because it takes time to create these prompts. A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that either. So they'll still come to you for your art. Now you just have to be like, all right, you need this. This is how I can, help you. This is how I can help create for you. And in addition, I also know how to make ChatGPT prompts. So I do both. I do the physical art and if you need help. So just make it so that way they
Yeah,
need you for everything, regardless.
that part. Well, look, we respect your time and greatly appreciate all of this. Like I said, you came in here. Now you went. The team went to OT, and you decided to drop 30 more. So now you know what I'm saying? You went and you
Listen,
passed Kobe record,
I'm
Mamba
trying to get
mentality.
MVP here on Curtis King podcast,
That
okay?
wasn't a question. Like you were already the favorite for MVP, but then you started like doing different things, like pulling up for three from 50 feet away. Like there was no, you know what I mean? So all that said, thank you so much for your time. Round of applause one more time. One more time. Like that's it's. I'm looking at folks in here who I've never seen their reaction like this before because at the speed and the value that you've been given, like we need people like you who are doing this because you make our lives feel like as DIYers, like I don't have to know everything at the level of a professional.
The basics will get you through, honestly. The fundamentals, if we're using sports here, the fundamentals will get you through 90% of the things that you need to do in the music industry, honestly. And 80, no, most people don't know the fundamentals. You know them, you're like way ahead of on
Yeah.
everything.
Bars. See, so then that was your post game. That was a post game interview right there.
The interview was like,
it was nothing.
Like, how do you
it was
feel
nothing.
about
That's when you score all them points and say, you know what? It's really just about my team and just getting the win. That's all that's about. That's all it's about. Look, we
Absolutely.
We greatly appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen. Have an amazing night. Thank you so much for your fantastic questions. Samara's information is down below in the description. Have an amazing night. Samara, did you want to tell the good people goodbye?
Bye, everyone. Thank you for the great questions. Keep making your beautiful music. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got. I'm just excited to be here because I've been a big fan of this page. So this is like an achievement for me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Won't be the last. So I'm going to get Seth's on the phone. All right. Well, thank you. All right, ladies.